touchdown! What a run in the first touchdown of the 12-team playoff.
This is 365 Sports.
Daniels keeps it, and he scores!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Underneath, Smith gets to the corner. Money on the rise. Touchdown, Jeremiah Smith.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Johnson buys some time. There's the tight end again, rumbling towards the end zone, and the touchdown for Anzio.
Remember when you had a guy, someone who could fix anything? They're still out there at Batteries Plus. With their quick solutions and expert advice on batteries, key fobs, and phone repair, Batteries Plus will have you in and out and on your way in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Klubnik's going to take off. Klubnik for the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on a Thursday. 365 Sports as we head into another weekend. Games even last night and tonight and more. And we will be here. We're going to have our college football picks today. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and me will do that. But some also injury news involving the Big 12 and elsewhere. And Sam Kahn, Max Olson, Craig's Off the Radar, and Ari Temkin, Big 12 radio on TuneIn, plus Paul's Top 5 and more. And you'll see polls pop up in the chat room. Please be a part of those if you don't mind. So yesterday, this story from this is something we'd heard about, but Nicole Auerbach, NBC, college athletes and school staff can bet on pro sports beginning November 1st. All three divisions have voted to approve the change per the NCAA. Now, my thought on this was that's like giving a meth head an ability to distribute crack, in my opinion, because I just was worried about, would this still lead to some problems?
It's going to probably. I think that the NCAA views this as the opposite of, this is the methadone for the meth or crack or whatever that they're giving people that maybe like they're not going to be able to, kind of like with NIL. They couldn't police people getting paid, so eventually you had to make it legal, right? And so they did all that. But with this is kind of admitting that, look, we can't stop them from betting, so we can say they can bet on pro sports because everybody around them that's not an athlete can do that anyway. So we're going to do that. I just know that, like, this is overall for athletes to be able to bet is a slippery slope. And the biggest story in sports today is an example of that.
All right, Craig, your thoughts on it, and then we're going to get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I just remain amazed by how gambling just seems to control everything in sports nowadays, as far as like the mindset of, just the gambling being so out front and so important to so many parties now because so much money is there to be made, and not just by the gamblers these days, but by the companies, the conferences, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, I guess the NCAA doesn't have much say to oppose this at this point. They have no stones whatsoever to really challenge anything, and they have one of the worst court records imaginable over the course of the last 20-plus years. So I guess, they are trying to just make things a lot simpler and just go along with this and say, all right, we'll go for it, but, here's the conditions as to how we can try to make this look as clean as possible and potentially be as clean as possible. But yeah, you're not going to stomp out every nefarious deed that might stem from this. I mean, there's always going to be some guy that knows a guy or some uncle or some friend or whoever that's going to get in the ear of some athlete somewhere. Might not be as big as Ohio State. It might be like at Elon for the basketball program or something. But if there's money to be made, there's going to be people trying to abuse the system. And so we know that's probably happening to some extent, although nothing majorly high profile, unlike we're about to get to as far as the college ranks go. But it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if we have a huge gambling scandal in the next 2 to 5 years from the college ranks in some form or fashion. But, I mean, sports gambling's everywhere you look. Apparently, for the young people, it's like, I mean, immensely popular.
It's like breathing.
I don't know about that, but I do think that it's something that was kind of inevitable that we'd probably reach this point. And I guess the best you can do is to not allow it on pro sports. So just cross your fingers and hope that it doesn't leak over, but you know that it will at some point.
It's not the first time there's been any kind of a gambling issue in a lot of different sports. We know that we saw what happened back before 2024. When Iowa had some players caught up in it, but because of this, now this is giving college athletes the right to do what they want when it comes to gambling on pro sports. Then to this morning, I wake up and this story, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and also Chauncey Billups, former star and Portland head coach, arrested by the FBI for alleged illegal gambling. And even did I see mafia involved in this story too?
Yeah. Although listening to the FBI talk about it was like the first day they'd heard about the mafia. I was kind of surprised. It was very basic mafia terms, but Terry Rozier has been allegedly point shaving and things like that, betting on his props, taking himself out of games, and all of that, dating back to I believe 2023, and then Chauncey Billups and then Damon Jones, a former NBA player, were allegedly running rigged poker games. These two cases are linked in that they're under the same umbrella, but like Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups were not doing this together. It was two different things of these illegal poker games. And it's weird Goodfellas type stuff, man. It's X-ray tables and cheating at poker games with technology and all these different things.
Have you guys gone to NBA.com by any chance?
I have not.
Go on to NBA.com if you have a second and let me know what you don't see on their homepage. Probably
that story.
None of it.
Yeah.
I don't see it anywhere. I don't know if that means they should. You would think that there would be some, but it's a bad look. So there we are with that. That's why we started with Nicole Arbach and something we knew was coming. And I just wonder if that's just a little bit dangerous. I hope that all athletes will be doing the right thing like anybody else. But I got a feeling if grown-ups can't control themselves when it comes to this, you wonder about if college athletes can. And I'm not talking about a lot of them, but just a handful.
Yeah, I mean, I have never cared about this story because I don't care about gambling, and I don't care whether college athletes are able to gamble. It's never been a concern of mine, but I guess it is for many. And so college athletes will be able to bet on the Chargers game or the Cowboys or the Mavericks or whoever. And I mean, good for them. I don't have a strong opinion on it because I don't care. Like, I don't care if they're allowed to bet. Like, I do not care. But apparently a lot of people do. And for those who do, and that were hoping this would be the case, they've got their way. So the basketball player at North Carolina can bet on the NFL game tonight. And so great. The world continues rotating, and that's all well and good. But yeah, of course, the other side of it is, what does this potentially lead to? And that's really why it's a story, right? It's not so much a story that these athletes can gamble. It's the fears of what that could turn into that really makes this a story. And so then you have the timing of the NBA and the fact you got with active head coach and active players and all these guys scheming and text messages of evidence of, hey, this guy's out on my team, bet heavy on them tonight. Like, just stupid criminal stuff, by the way, just stupidity galore. But that timing of this does make this story look a little bit different, especially when that's the big reason why it's such a hot topic is, well, what could this turn into? So, yeah, it's a little fair warning, if nothing else, of here's the power, but don't abuse it because the FBI is watching and we're going to be watching, and we are going to let gambling run free across sports because Lord knows you can't watch it for 25 seconds without there being an ad of some sort. But there is still going to be some ramifications if you break laws. So we'll see who crosses that line and who doesn't.
Yeah, this is criminal in some cases. By the way, one of the stories that was all about LeBron James information was Damon Jones, the former player, was giving information on LeBron and whether he's going to play, what's his injury, whatever. So that was a part of it. So there we are with that, just to set it up because of what is official November 1st with the NCAA and college athletes. Now, Brett Yormark, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, is not apologizing for slow pace of NIL Go. You've heard about this as far as you send information to NIL Go, they approve it or not. That's not a glitch. That's a feature. Defending the new oversight system introduced in college sports revenue sharing era.
Well, I saw Ryan P. Mulvaney, other people commenting on this that, put this in the next deposition of when they're going to, sue about NIL Go, because you've got a conference commissioner admitting that it's slow on purpose. And he's admitting that it's slow on purpose so that they can, sift through all of it. But it is – here's the biggest problem with NIL Go is the three of us talk about college athletics every single day of the year. Do you know what the rules are, Smokey?
Of what?
Of the CSC?
No, not really.
You don't.
No,
Craig, do you know what the rules are?
Remember, I'm the one that said,
Okay.
I hope that this can, but it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Craig doesn't know what the rules are, right? Do you know what the rules are?
No, and I don't, and I don't even attempt to know, because I get another one of these things. I just have no idea.
Yeah, no idea. Newhouse doesn't know the coaches. Newhouse doesn't know the players. The agents are really foggy on it. The commissioners are really foggy on it. They've never said anything. This is a mess, and they need to stop pretending like it's not a mess and just move forward when it's ready. But NIL Go being slow is not good. Like it's going to. And then when you say this, you want to know why you wind up in court all the time? Crap like this. This is going to end up in court again, and you're going to lose because you refuse to just admit where things are.
Yep, and so I've seen even parents that have been frustrated about it because it could affect whether somebody gets their money entering a semester. We're 6, 7, 8 games into the season.
Do you know what I feel like the framework is? There are some very corrupt insurance companies out there who deny all claims for everything, no matter what. And then they wait for people. Like, it's easier for them to deny every claim, then wait for somebody to appeal it. And then the people who are just like, well, I guess I just don't get my claim, then they save that money as opposed to fulfilling the claim, which they're legally obligated to by your contract. This sounds like what NIL Go is doing is they're just going to try to deny as much as they can and then see who comes back.
Let's get to some college football notes, which we like to do at the beginning, because that's what we are here for. But still, those stories enough where we needed to bring them up.
Yeah, I mean, they're big stories, but definitely I don't think of the utmost interest to most people. But they are big deals because they're going to have a say in, how things operate moving forward. But yeah, they're the kinds of topics that my interest wanes because, again, I'm not heavy into the gambling side of things, but hey, great that athletes will have an opportunity to do so. But yeah, the concern is, okay, what does that turn into? And then with this, I mean, it's one problem after the other with the NCAA. We've spent years talking about one problem or this other problem or that other problem. And guess what, guys? This will probably be a problem as well because everything they do is problematic because it's never within the lines and confines of being on the up and up. It's always like, well, we'll do it this way and just see if they allow it, or we got to go back to court.
And then there's a huge roadblock.
It's every time it's like, well, this isn't 100% probably going to go through, but we'll just see how much of it we can cram and then deal with it later. And that's been the story of their entire existence basically over the last 30 years, which is why they're always in court and always losing court cases and all of that. So we knew with the NIL Go that the idea was great, but that it would probably have its detractors and probably have people poking holes through it and probably have its issues. And it sounds like it definitely has its issues as far as the speed or lack thereof of which these deals are going through. So they'll have to improve that. I did want to mention, though, something I did find interesting from all of the talk over the last couple of days was from Brett Yormark. I mean, he talked about the tournament, and surprise, surprise, he's 4 more teams in the basketball tournament. He's 4 more teams in the football tournament, and of course he is. But one thing that was of interest that we never mentioned yesterday was that they are not going to go with private equity in the Big 12.
No, he said
found that very notable.
No, yeah, he said that. He reiterated that. He was asked about that.
Yeah.
He said, it's not for us. It's not for us.
Well, and there are other ways. I mean, there's other ways.
You mean to get money?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's always options, but they are at least one that scratched and see if there was an itch worth putting medicine on it, and then they've now moved on from that. All right, now some of the stories when it comes to players and this weekend. Will Hammond will start again for Texas Tech against Oklahoma State at quarterback. Baron Morton will be available if necessary, which would mean he'll be dressed out, but they'll try to see if they can have this game move on without anything. Will Hammond, of course, when he first came in, we've gone over this, the first time he appeared, he was fantastic. And then each time later, doesn't mean he won't get better. But when he's had time to prepare, you wonder if that is something that has created a little bit of anxiety or something. But he's a hell of a player, but he will start not Baron Morton against Oklahoma State.
I think this is a better scenario is that Baron Morton will be available if necessary, where they're not forcing Baron back into the lineup and letting Will Hammond, and remember this kind of popped up in the middle of last week and all that. They learned from Oklahoma, like, hey, don't just rush a guy back. Like if he can play, but he hasn't practiced much, just have him available. And so that I think is a good plan. And if Will Hammond prepares this week, all week long is like he's going to be the starter, that probably looks better. They're also playing Oklahoma State. So he could prepare just the same much and probably win.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need to rush back to have the Red Raiders beat Oklahoma State. I mean, that's a totally different ball game from Mateer trying to make it back for the Texas game, because he may only play in this game one time, as some people were saying, or just because it's such a big game and it's the game that you look back on at the end of the year. I was always of the opinion that I would rather have him sit out and you increase your chances of losing to Texas, which look what happened regardless. He lost anyways, even with bringing him back. I was always of the opinion of if he's not 100%, I'd much rather have him for the games they're about to play than that one game that weekend. Now, obviously, they turned around and beat South Carolina, so he's fine. But we'll see how that goes the rest of the way with that hand and anything else that he may be dealing with. But I think the jury's still out on whether that was the right call or not. If he makes it through the rest of the season, then okay, they probably didn't make a bad choice there.
Well, he looked a lot better last week after he had played against UT, like you said.
But
yeah.
I think he probably came back a week too early, and they're lucky that it didn't turn into anything worse, like him re-injuring it to the point of not being able to play the rest of the year, which was what my concern was. So, that's one way of doing things, and Texas Tech doesn't have their version of Texas on the schedule. If they did, I'd be curious to see what decision they might make. But with it being Oklahoma State, yeah, I think this is the right call. Will Hammond can handle this. And Baron Morton, I think you've seen how valuable he is over the last few days to your football team. For those that maybe didn't know, and for those who did, they just was reassured with what you saw this past weekend. So I think Will Hammond's got a very bright future. I think he can handle this in the meantime, but I definitely think that you want Baron Morton to be as healthy as he can be for this stretch run.
I agree. But if Baron Morton can suit up and be on the sideline, then to me, Baron Morton should start. That's my opinion. And when you use these, and they will win maybe 57-6, I don't know, 38, whatever the spread is. But that's my opinion. And as soon as you let anything creep into your mind that, yeah, but it's Oklahoma State, the team can't think that way. Coaching staff can't think that way. We can. But Baron Morton, if he's available and he's suited up, then to me, why not play? Even if you just play 2 or 3 series and you move on.
Yeah, I'm sure first of all, they have way more information on what he is feeling and dealing with than we do. So let's start there, where it's easy for us to say from over here. But if you are getting the medical updates on a daily basis from your training staff, they might say something differently of like, yeah, if you're down by 1 point with 2 minutes left and Will Hammond has to leave the game for some reason, could Baron Morton come in and make some plays for you versus whatever else you'd have to turn to? Like, yeah, let's have him in case of this emergency break glass situation. So he's available, but I don't think anybody has in mind that he's actually going to need to play this weekend. And if he needs to, then that itself is the biggest story, because I don't see what would have to take place for Oklahoma State to have this game where it's like down to the wire, and this Texas Tech team that's probably worth tens of millions of dollars more roster-wise is struggling with them with Baron Morton or with not Baron Morton.
But no one thought UCLA would beat. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying you got to be careful when you start to look that. A wet blanket says, okay, now Oklahoma State by 50. Now,
you know what? That
Dylan
would be
Edwards.
incredible. That would be an amazing story, and would be that would be the most unforeseen result maybe ever if that were to be the case. But yeah, I think it's not quite the UCLA example, but look, man, they're trying to protect their quarterback, who clearly is their best quarterback, and this other guy is pretty damn good too. He's going to be fine. He'll handle it. They should have no issue winning this football game and keeping Baron Morton healthy and not having to go break that glass. But if they need to, then he'll be there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Craig. Dylan Edwards, yet again, out again against KU in that Kansas State rivalry that Kansas State has dominated for a long, long time. We'll get to that in just a second. So he is out. Boy, he has really just not been a factor for them it seems like from day one.
Well, I mean, he returned one punt and then was out and fumbled it and then was out for weeks after that. So it's kind of been a lost year for Dylan Edwards to this point. And when he's played and been healthy, he's been a huge factor in a couple of games. But yeah, I think that, as we've passed the midway point here, it's just not. It's been a lost year for him.
16 consecutive wins for Kansas State against KU. 16 since 2009, the longest streak of anybody in the 122 meetings of these two teams.
Yeah, it's been very one-sided. Kansas slight favorites this weekend. They're at home. You'd think that they're due. I mean, with the streak being what it is. But, yeah, I didn't remember it being that lopsided. I think I get like a yearly reminder after every K-State win of this is 14, 15, 16, 17 in a row. And then I'm always like, oh, yeah, that's pretty long. But, again, was reminded this time around earlier this week of how long that stretch has been. And seems like a ripe opportunity for Kansas to break that streak this weekend. But with or without Dylan Edwards, I think K-State's a little bit more confident than when we were talking about this game maybe a month ago. And I know of K-State folks who were just saying, oh, my God, Kansas is going to blow them out. Kansas is going to win this. This is going to be an awful Sunflower Showdown. Well, it's a much different tune a month later because I think K-State shows some signs of life, even though it's all based off of a close loss to Baylor and then a win in their last outing. It's not like they're on some crazy stretch run, but I think they feel like, well, maybe we are the start of a stretch run. Well, but having Dylan Edwards not involved is not going to help matters. I think Joe Jackson has shown that he can, carry the rock, and obviously Avery Johnson can run a little bit. So I don't think this is an end of the world thing. It's more, just a very frustrating, like you've gotten used to almost playing without him now at this point. So it shouldn't be all that different from what you've been doing most of the year. It just sucks that this year hasn't lived up to what you thought, but in particular, amongst that bigger story is like this individual story of Dylan Edwards and what you thought he could do this year. It's just not at all coming close to expectations.
All-time series, Kansas leads it, by the way, 65, 52, and 5 with the last 16 straight to Kansas State. Desmond Purnell, linebacker, Kansas State. They are very explosive, really good offense, really good players, whole team, the defensive-wise, special teams-wise, but I feel like we got better guys. I feel like we're going to go out there and dominate. So there's the report, Kelly Robinet, on a quote from Desmond Purnell.
I think that if you lined up both rosters and, as to is deeper, it's probably Kansas State. But Kansas has just been a little more consistent this year, although it's not as far away as I thought it would be given the first 3 weeks of the year. But, sometimes like I picked Kansas when we did our Big 12 picks, just because I think sometimes it's time to break a streak. And I just have no faith in Kansas State week to week. It's kind of it's like, all right, well, who's going to roll out there this week kind of a thing with them.
It sounds like a guy who's saying that pretty much locker room talk that anybody would say, we're going to go dominate our rival and beat them. And so it sounds good. We'll see this Saturday here in a couple days, what's what with that. And if Kansas State were to win that game, then I think that is a team that has been able to reverse its fortune and really spruce up a season that looked like it was just really wilting at the vine from the very beginning. It would be a great thing for K-State to win this game and add that onto that TCU win and then go into this stretch run and kind of see where it could take them. I think this is an important game for Kansas. They have been okay this year. Thought they'd be in the Big 12 conversation probably a bit more than they have been at this point. You win this weekend and see what else happens around you, and maybe you will be more so by the end of the weekend. But I think with the streak being what it is and the Kansas season with such high expectations just sort of being middle of the road, I think they need a win. I think Kansas really needs a win here to kind of add that to the Leipold resume, and also to turn this from just a season into something that has a bit more that you can grab onto.
Yeah, otherwise, they're going to be like trying to get to that sixth win to get bowl eligible, which they had to race to that at the end of last year and fell short. Utah is hosting Colorado this week. And, of course, coming off the loss emotionally, you got to wonder about, can they get, a veteran team, you get back up off the mat. Devin Dampier listed as questionable to play against Colorado in the initial availability reports. Max Olson will join us today at 4 o'clock. Bird Ficklin will be the starter, the freshman, if Dampier is not available.
Bird Ficklin's a great name. But another freshman. And look, where we are in Utah, here we got an injured quarterback and a freshman having to play. We've heard this song before quite a bit, and I hope that Devin Dampier can play and he's healthy, but this changes the way I feel about this game greatly, even though Colorado is erratic. If Devin Dampier's not going to play, I wonder what kind of offense we're going to see at all from Utah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see when the time comes, I guess, if that's in fact what they have to do. But it's definitely an interesting note, and I don't know how banged up Dampier was last week, but hadn't really seen anything up until today when that report dropped. And so, that makes you a little bit more hesitant to just go all in on Utah this weekend, but the line's still like 2 touchdowns. So Vegas hadn't adjusted to that potential news, or it just doesn't affect it really all that much. I guess we'll see what happens, but Utah can ill afford another loss, already have a couple in the Big 12. And I know Dion and company are feeling kind of good of where they are post bye week. So I'd still expect Utah to win this game just based on their defense. But you suddenly make a change there at quarterback, and that can make things a little bit more interesting, certainly.
We will have a comment from Matt Campbell on Kalani Sitake that was pretty darn cool. We'll have that. Also a note on BYU and the fine, if it was one or not. And they're now, they got a guy that's putting money out, helping them in a lot of different ways, and what it's going to go to. We'll have that a little bit later on today in the show, along with Texas getting their backfield a little more healthy as well. When we come back, Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. Max Olson today will join us. Ari Temkin later on, and our college football picks. We'll do that. Andrew Valade is back after taking a day off with family. Garrett Ross and Brandon Rowe running the mothership. And this is 365 Sports. Brandon? Baylor Club? Alumni Association. Now, they're going to have homecoming, not this weekend, but next. And what does that mean? That means they're going to be full throttle with all sorts of festivities, all sorts of luncheons, dinners, reunions, and more. Not only on game day, which is Saturday against UCF next week, but also throughout the week. And Doug Furch and also Paul Thorpe will have information if you go and Google or go to Facebook and just put Baylor Alumni Events and Homecoming. They have their setup across the pedestrian bridge, just a little bit southwest of the stadium, right there on the Brazos River. And they always have great food and fun and festivities and also live music and so much more. And Paul Thorpe and Doug Furch also take their show on the road. When I say show, whenever Baylor's anywhere, they're there in some particular way, either at the team hotel or somewhere near the stadium. The Baylor Alumni, Facebook it. And again, Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe, they're the ones that make it go.
My go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com.
Golfballs.com carries the latest selection of golf balls, clubs, and gear from brands such as Titleist, TaylorMade, and Callaway. Golfballs.com remains the world leader in golf customization. And of course, online at golfballs.com.
UBO Business Services. We are a studies-based service organization that is the best in Texas when it comes to copiers, printers, and scanners. The way we quantify that is through a company used by millions of corporations called Net Promoter Score. What Net Promoter Score looks at are your Google reviews. We have a better Net Promoter Score than H-E-B with a 65 and Ritz-Carlton Hotels with a 70. According to Net Promoter Score, if you're a 70 or above, you're considered world-class in customer service. UBO Business Services is an 86 when it comes to Net Promoter Score. You can find us at ubeo.com, ubeo.com.
It's back 0% for 72 months on all 2025 Ram 1500 trucks during the Drive into Fall event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Check out a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with a massive $16,000 off, or a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $12,000 off, and both at 3.9 for 72 months. And if you drive a Ford, Toyota, or GM, get an extra $1,500 bonus cash. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin. And you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
It's football season, and we can create your outdoor tailgating spaces that is actually a part of your home. Bifold doors that tie in the inside and the outside, and you can gain anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 square feet living space, all while taking in the big game poolside. Call us at Gather & Co. Kitchen and Bath, where we can create your unique tailgating space.
You got batteries for my side-by-side?
Yes.
Replace my flashlight?
Sure thing. What about my business?
Oh, good one.
100%. Batteries for my fleet of trucks?
Gas floor scrubbers?
Yes, and fire panels.
We have pallets of batteries.
Well, what about...
As your go-to guy, if it needs a battery, we have it.
Well, that's all you had to say.
Could have led with that. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, with us most every Thursday at around 3:30. He's with us. Greg Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak, and Sam today with a story that says how quarterback play has impacted the college football playoff race. Yeah, you got to have an alpha. Very rarely can you not. You just have a workman-like guy. But there's also some quarterbacks we thought would be very much involved in that playoff race that really haven't shown up yet. Sam, your thoughts about your story?
Yeah, it's interesting to see, because I think if we would have done this in the preseason to think, okay, what quarterbacks are going to impact the playoff race, you would have had names like Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, Arch Manning at Texas, Cade Klubnik at Clemson, and all of those teams right now are on the outside looking in. Clemson very much feels like it's out at this point. Texas and LSU on the bubble, but really feel like on the outside of the bubble at this point. And you've got a lot of guys on this list who have been impressive that are guys that we didn't expect. I don't know that, even though I think even maybe the most optimistic Indiana fans, I don't know if you would have said, hey, are they going to be 7-0 and beat Oregon on the road with Fernando Mendoza being a Heisman Trophy candidate? Not so sure about that. Dante Moore, I think, depending on who you talk to, I think there was some expectation. The optimism on Dante Moore coming into the season was very, very high coming out of Eugene. A lot of comparisons with him and Bo Nix and what they thought Dante Moore was capable of. So I'm not certainly surprised by it. But Gunnar Stockton is one that I think has taken a big step forward. I think you got to give CJ Carr at Notre Dame a lot of credit. And the biggest one, the most unexpected on this list, is Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't even the starter coming in, but yet here he is helping them contend for a playoff spot and be right in the middle of the mix, and a tremendous story as a Division II transfer from Ferris State. So it is a really good exercise to look at what we thought were our priors and our preconceived notions coming into the season versus what has actually played out.
Well, I mean, you mentioned some of the bubble teams too. Miller Moss had a fantastic game last week against Miami, and now Miami is actually behind the 8 ball in the ACC race, not necessarily the CFP race, but with some of the other teams in the league having easier schedules on the way out, they may not wind up in the championship game and just have to wait and find out what their seed is, after the season is over. And that's due in large part to what Jeff Brom has done year in, year out with these transfer quarterbacks. But Miller Moss, the latest one, I'm curious to see what happens when he gets one that he develops for a couple years.
Yeah, no doubt. We think about Jack Plummer a few years ago, what he did with him. Tyler Shuck, I thought he did a tremendous job with Shuck last year. And now Miller Moss, who I thought was solid early last year at USC, eventually got benched, though. And Miller Moss is not a guy who's going to wow you. He's not going to stuff the stat sheet. He's not going to win the combines. I feel like he's the definition of a solid, capable quarterback. He's going to get the ball out quick. He's going to distribute it accurately to where he needs to get. He's not a super plus athlete, but he gets the job done, I think, for the most part for them. And if he's surrounded by a good supporting cast, which they have, and when Isaac Brown is healthy, it helps them a whole lot, then you can make something happen with that. And you're right. I am curious to see, with considering how he's developed the transfers, I am really curious to see how Jeff Brom does with one of his own eventually.
Sam, the 3 biggest games on paper this weekend are in the SEC as far as just ranked versus ranked teams go. I mean, you're just talking about Trinidad Chambliss. They're heading to Ole Miss, heading to Norman to take on Oklahoma. You got Missouri at Vandy, and then A&M favorites rolling into Death Valley against LSU. And while the coaching carousel story is also happening simultaneously, it's like kind of side-eyeing Brent Venables and Brian Kelly a little bit about, like, you're not like up next, but you're not maybe far down the line either. Obviously a huge weekend, but where are you in the Aggies rolling into Death Valley and LSU, needing a win here in some ways, but A&M trying to remain amongst the top teams in the country?
Yeah, this feels like almost an elimination game of sorts for LSU. Like, they got to win this one at home. This is a spot where, Mike Elko has talked a lot about shedding the disbelief and shedding this feeling that the other shoe's going to drop. Well, if you're going to do it, this is the spot to do it. Go into Death Valley and beat a desperate LSU team at home on a Saturday night. That is going to be I know that LSU has not played well, particularly offensively. They have not protected Garrett Nussmeier very well. And so I do have my doubts that LSU can pull that game off. But it's Saturday night in Death Valley. Like, you know how crazy the crowd's going to be with a number 3 team, 7-0 team coming to town. And Mike Elko said earlier this week, A&M has yet to go in, since they've been in the SEC, they have yet to go into LSU and win on the road.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I say it's a really tough task. Now, that said, when I look at these teams, LSU, they haven't been as explosive offensively as you thought they would be, considering the weapons they got for Garrett Nussmeier and what they did in the transfer portal. And I look at A&M offensively, I think A&M can outscore them. And I have my questions as to, with A&M's front playing the way it is, if LSU is going to keep Garrett Nussmeier clean, because they certainly haven't really in recent weeks. And so this matchup favors A&M a whole lot. It's just a matter of, can they make sure they play some mistake-free football? They don't have some of the issues they had defensively last week at Arkansas, which was a little bit messy. If they can avoid some of that, then you feel really good. If you do see some breakdowns on the back end defensively, then all bets are off.
Here's something that I think Paul sent this out, but from footballscoop.com. SEC teams were 2-6 on the back end of playing consecutive conference road games last year, and are 0-3 in that scenario so far this year. Teams playing back-to-back road games: A&M, Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee, and Texas. So even if part of that trend works, then we're going to have more shuffle inside the top 25.
No doubt. And I will say one thing that I do think works in A&M's favor a little bit, and this may seem like a minor thing, but I think it does matter in the grand scheme, is they did not have to play a night game at Arkansas last week. So that means, and I know their game was delayed from a 2:30 kick to 4:30, but they still got out of there a reasonable time. So you weren't getting home necessarily at 3 or 4 in the morning, which you do if you're on a late night game, and it's a night game at LSU. So I feel like they're not having that tight, short turnaround that you sometimes get, where you get the really late night game and then you get 11 o'clock kick the next week. I feel like that throws some teams off, but it'll be interesting. Like I said, Brian Kelly, it's a big moment for him and his team. They've got to get it together, and Elko and A&M are full speed ahead trying to contend for the college football playoff and the SEC title. So really, really big stakes there.
What do you think about Talon Green and the potential for a consistently good quarterback coach if Arkansas can bring one in next year, should he not transfer?
Yeah, he's a really talented guy. I think you saw what he could do last week against A&M, and really since he's been there and since Bobby Petrino has been the play caller, I think he's a guy that you look at, the traits are really good. He's big. He's got a strong arm. He's very mobile. He's got a really good sense, just a really good feel for everything on when to take off, when to throw the ball, how to make plays, how to keep himself alive in the pocket and outside the pocket and extend plays. And he's such a tremendous asset for that team. I think, honestly, it wouldn't be shocking to me to see him get some NFL run. Maybe a second day pick, possibly. I don't know. I'm not a draft Nick or a draft scout, so I can't say for sure. But when you look at all the tools and the traits, they're really appealing. So it wouldn't shock me if that was in the mix for him as well. But a really talented guy who I think is making the most of an opportunity. They just don't have a defense that can stop it. They're one of the best, most productive teams offensively in the country. If they had a defense that could get some stops, then they'd be in a lot better shape than they are. And maybe Sam Pittman would still have a job.
What did you make of kind of the, Big 12 getting turned on its head a little bit last weekend with Texas Tech suffering their first loss, and then BYU, the huge win there in the Holy War? I guess that doesn't upend things dramatically, but just so much focus was on Texas Tech. So what are your thoughts kind of coming out of that game on them and the bigger picture at large, especially now with BYU and Cincinnati being on top of the conference standings right now?
Cincinnati, put some respect on the name of Brandon Sorsby at the Bearcats. I mean, he is playing about as well as anybody in the country at his position right now, and to see them in the mix right now is pretty awesome. Good for Scott Satterfield. I know a lot of people were down after last year didn't go quite the way they wanted, but they're up and rolling. I think they've done a really good job with that roster and how they constructed it this offseason. So interested to see them in the mix, and definitely a surprise team that's right now on the playoff bubble. They are on the college football playoff bubble right now. So I don't know how many people would have said that coming into the season. As for Texas Tech, you knew there was going to be a hiccup somewhere. I felt, especially with Baron Morton's health. I think we love Will Hammond. All of us who've seen Will Hammond play think he's really talented. Going on the road against a really good team is tough. And he saw that. It was through 3 quarters last week. He only had 88 passing yards. Now, what I am encouraged by for Texas Tech is the way they finished that game, which was, hey, they're down a couple scores. They end up coming back. They make some big plays on offense. They make some big plays on special teams. They make some stops on defense. And, oh, by the way, if David Bailey doesn't get a roughing the passer call on 4th and goal, one of those touchdowns isn't on the board for Arizona State. So that game in some ways was a little bit closer down the stretch than you would have thought. And then, they go ahead and go take the lead. And then we know what Arizona State did to end up winning it. But I was impressed that Texas Tech didn't quit and that they didn't allow the frustration to overcome them. And with the young quarterback and with the hostile atmosphere, they still came back and took the go-ahead lead. So I think that bodes well for them moving forward. And I know they still have BYU on the schedule, obviously Oklahoma State this weekend. I still think the schedule sets up really well for them down the stretch. And I still feel if Hammond can continue to grow, it looks like he'll start this week, he can continue to grow and get his footing under him, and they can get Baron Morton back, I still think this is a team in really good shape.
What do you think of the votes of confidence this week from 2 teams? Wisconsin
everywhere.
Auburn didn't like officially say that, but they might as well have. We kind of all know where this is headed. Are these just like send us money and we'll fire the coach kind of things?
Probably. I think it's a few things. Is you got to set a baseline expectation to let people know, hey, it costs a lot of money to fire this coach, and so if y'all want it done, then y'all better help out. But Wisconsin to me is one that feels just a matter of time. I don't know, after getting shut out a couple times and the way the vibe is there, I just don't know how Luke Fickell makes it. Mike Norvell is, and Paul, you would know that one better than me, but I feel like that one is almost, I know the Stanford loss was really, really bad, but I still feel like that one could go either way. And so I'm really interested. Auburn is the one out of Florida State and Auburn. I almost would be more willing to bet on Auburn because you know how crazy their boosters are, and they will run you out in a heartbeat. Let's not forget they ran Gene Chizik out 2 years after winning a national championship.
Yeah.
So they have no problem pulling the trigger. And I did find it amusing that Hugh Freeze almost asked for a vote of confidence because someone asked him in the press conference, hey, will you be looking for a vote of confidence or something from your AD? And he's like, that sure would be nice. And I just found it interesting because I don't know that I've ever seen a coach publicly ask for his AD to come out to make a positive statement about his program. But yeah, I think all those three jobs are right for possible changes. If I had to rank them in order of how certain I feel on them, I would say Wisconsin 1, and then I would probably put Auburn 2, slightly above Florida State.
It's amazing some of the names. Like Florida, obviously a huge name for a program that's in the middle of this. Penn State, a big, huge name. And before it's all said and done, somebody, I think it will be you, will write something about the overall amount of money that's buyout and with assistance and then on top of that, how much money spent on going around the country interviewing and bringing in a new staff and coach. It's going to be in maybe 150, 200 million before it's said and done.
Yeah, we're already into 9 figures right now. I think with all the coaches that have been fired to this point, we're already past the $100 million mark in buyouts committed. Now, on James Franklin, they do have some offset language in there that could mitigate that one quite a bit, and that's important. But a lot of these don't. Like Billy Napier's, I don't believe has any offset language, and so that one is 21 plus million. And that's what it is. And that's where the coaches, and that's where I'm interested in this next coaching cycle to see, does that change? We didn't see it change with Indiana just now. They just gave Kurt Signetti an extension and guaranteed him 90 plus million. I don't know how common that's going to be anymore. I think, and that one I think is a little bit of a special circumstance because it's Indiana and they've never had this type of success and a coach take them to this level. So I understand why you would do that. But I do think in this next round of 12, 15, 20, however many hires we end up with in this cycle, I think you are going to see the buyouts be a little bit smarter because the other reason is you cannot commit that much money to a coach because you still have to have money to pay the players. And if you don't have the players, the coach is not going to win anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They also need to stop negotiating against themselves. Like that's one of the things they do. It's so crazy. I did a story for Sikkim365.com like 4 years ago. And I called like several ADs that I know and asked them, do you feel like you're negotiating against yourself? A lot of times when you do this, and all three of them to a man said, yes, I do. It's just the nature of the thing, but it's hard to go, you know what? Fine. Take that other job. Go ahead. But that's kind of what they need to do.
Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
Because like your coach is not Nick Saban. He's
right.
not. Like, right. So just let him go if he really wants to go.
So I talked to an AD about this summer, and here are the two driving factors that create this situation of the buyouts. It's the fear, number one, the fear of we lose our guy, and then what if the next guy is not good enough and is not up to the level that we are right now? Number two is the cost of replacing him. So if you say, let's say your coach right now is getting paid $7 million a year, but you're a really good program and you're doing really well, and you know the top of the market is $11 million. So if you lose your $7 million coach, but then you have to go swipe another coach, you're going to have to pay 10 or 11 anyway to get that guy. And so is it worth it to spend the extra money to go poach somebody? Or would you rather just pay that extra money to the guy you have and not have to change anything? So those are the two things. I think the fear is the biggest driving factor because the fans, and this is unique to college football as opposed to pro football, the rabid nature of college football fans and the connection and the passion, the emotion, and the donor involvement where you have big money donors who can have their say because of how much money they donate, that can really push things over the top and say, you know what? This is my guy, and I'm going to put this money up for him so we can keep him, or help put money up for him so we can keep him. And so that, I think, is the biggest factor. But then the next biggest factor is I think you factor in the cost of, well, in order to poach somebody else, you're going to have to give a raise anyway, unless you're willing to take the risk and gamble on someone who's of a lower profile and maybe not as proven. And a lot of your alumni and fans will rake you over the coals if you let a proven coach walk and you're going to hire an unproven one.
Sam, how big of a deal is it for Willie Fritz and the Cougs to be bowl eligible right now?
God, huge deal. I would not have pegged it to be this soon. I did think they were going to be a bowl team this year, but I thought they'd be 6-6 or 7-5. I thought 7-5 was the ceiling for this team. To be sitting here at 6-1 and actually technically in Big 12 championship game contention is remarkable. Willie Fritz is a builder, and he's a winner, and he's done it everywhere he has coached. We've seen it. His track record is there for everyone to see. But I thought it was going to take longer than it has. They ported an entire offensive line, so you wondered, hey, is that going to work out the way you hope it is? They got a lot of different skill position players. So Connor Wegman has been terrific. Tanner Koziel, the tight end, has been terrific. The defense, even though they had a coordinator change when Shieldwood left to Texas Tech, they hired Austin Armstrong from Florida. That hasn't really missed a beat. They've still been really good defensively. And so a testament to Willie Fritz, that personnel staff, that coaching staff, and those players, they have done an excellent job. And the fact that they're, even if they were to finish 7-5 and they don't have a strong finish in November, this is still a good positive season for Houston. First bowl since 2022, and definitely a sign of things to come for him. I think he's definitely now going to be a Big 12 title contender sooner rather than later.
Rank these in order of these three coaches who want to get back in the game of who will be hired first. Ed Orgeron, Jimbo Fisher, or John Gruden in college?
Who will be hired or who should be hired?
Who would be the favorite?
Who will be hired first? Jimbo Fisher, because he's, I think, the least furthest removed because he's been in it. So I think he would be first. Ed Orgeron second and Gruden third. I'm not really on the Gruden groomers thing. I don't understand that one. I know why he was a hot name 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I don't understand why it's a thing now. We're right now watching Bill Belichick fail at North Carolina. We have saw Herm Edwards fail at Arizona State. Not to say that every NFL coach is going to fail, but college football is a different deal, man. It's not, you can't just take some NFL coach and just plug them in and say, hey, it's going to work out. So I understand if Gruden wants to do it. Will somebody hire him? Sure. Somebody hired Trent Dilfer the last couple cycles ago, and we saw how that worked. So sure, somebody would hire him, but I just don't understand that one. Jimbo, I would say this. Of the three, the highest ceiling, maybe at Orgeron, depending on the job you put him in, just because of his recruiting ability. I think Jimbo's recruiting ability is really good too, but Jimbo Fisher, to me, has to answer some questions about program management because he had every resource under the sun at Texas A&M, and it crumbled under his watch because of how that program was managed and how much of a mess it was. And we've seen what has happened since Mike Elko's taken over. So I do think he's a good football coach. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a really good offensive mind. I think he has to change a lot of things and adjust a lot of things about his approach to succeed at the next level. But I do think with as many jobs going to be open, it would not shock me to see somebody give him a chance.
All right, Sam, thank you, buddy. Great to see you. Con time on Thursdays around 3:30 here on 365 Sports, and just around the corner, Max Olson of ESPN and a lot more. We appreciate it. If you have not yet subscribed to our channel, whether you're on YouTube watching, if you're on Twitter watching, if you wouldn't mind going to YouTube and putting in 365 Sports, subscribe, we would appreciate that. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, Brian Bauer. I got to tell you this. I'm getting ready to sneeze, by the way, so be careful. Brian Bauer texted me last week during the Baylor game. And okay, I did it. And was frustrated. He's a huge Baylor fan. So he texted me last week. I don't think he'll mind me telling you this. And he goes, I'm done. Take off our commercials on 365 Sports. I go, what do we do? And I had an idea because, he is all in, although right now, not quite. And he was just like, I'm just frustrated. I had to take it out on somebody. We're fine. Keep running what we do. But it was kind of funny. He's a great dude. And they have a great business. A full-service butcher shop, full-service bakery. And the butcher shop, if you have tailgate needs as far as produce, product, whatever, marinades, seasonings, charcoal, pellet fuel, they have it. Tri-tip and brisket, wings, sausage that they make in-house. And, of course, they always have more, like even hamburgers. And if you want to go just have a really nice dinner this weekend, you can get a ribeye steak, you can get a tomahawk steak, get a filet, get lobster tail if you want. And they had tiger shrimp the last time I was there, which, of course, is a larger shrimp that is delicious too. And on top of that, if you need cold beer and wine, they have it. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
No car payments for 90 days when you bring your auto loan home to Genco. Get 4.79% for 48 months and make no payments until 2026. Plus, get entered to win 3 months of no car payments. Bring your auto loan home to Genco. Lower your interest rate, save money, and no payments until 2026. For details, go to GencoFCU.org.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Max Olson, ESPN, joins us on 365 Sports. And Max, of course, always busy with so much. Of course, an absolute ace when it comes to NCAA, the transfer portal, and more. Max, I want to ask you about the 5-for-5 eligibility. I know that something came out yesterday on that. What exactly, where is that? And is that a setback for coaches that we're hoping that would pass?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a complicated topic because I think it's, you talk to coaches who really feel like, man, that's just is common sense. Let's get out of the redshirt game, especially, guys, this month when you're seeing not just the players leaving after coaches get fired, but guys that are kind of making these business decisions and their agents are, sort of suggesting, hey, let's take the 4-game redshirt, let's transfer, let's move on and focus on the portal here and stuff. Like, I think everybody would like to eliminate that type of stuff and just get out of the redshirt game unless it's for a medical redshirt and just say, hey, give these guys 5 years to play 5 seasons instead of 5 years to play 4 seasons. The problem is there is a class action lawsuit right now that is trying to get this stuff changed and give guys a 5th year. And so I think the NCAA is, I think as we've seen with other issues over the years here, I think it's like, I guess you guys just have to sit back and kind of let that play out from an appellate standpoint and just kind of see if there is a temporary restraining order or there is a injunction that forces them to change their rule. For now, they're not going to change it voluntarily. And I know coaches would like to see that happen, especially in football, and they'd like to see it happen this offseason. They'd like to be able to bring players back next year. I think a guy like Drew Aller is a great example. Drew Aller could have a fifth year if that changed, and then maybe that would be perfect for him after the injury he had. But for now, it doesn't seem like that lawsuit is far enough that we can say, this is for sure going to happen this offseason, and the NCAA is not looking to make that change this year.
Max, what do you think the athletes would want? Do they want 5 for 5 or 6 for 5?
I think that is part of where the NCAA gets a little bit nervous about, trying to embrace reform like this, is that why couldn't someone just sue and say it should be 6 for 6 or 8 for 8? And I think that's, at least among the administrators, I think that's a little bit of a talking point here. I think that in the class action lawsuit, these guys are also looking for the players from 2020, 2022 or whatever. They want some back pay for the year they lost because of this stuff too. So there is that element of it, just like with the House element a little bit. So there's what you do with the previous players is a part of this, but I think for now it's if you're a guy that thinks you assume that you're done with college after this year, you're out of eligibility, you have to go pro. Certainly you want an answer on this stuff before the portal stuff really heats up in November, December.
Max, a week ago, the Penn State job had opened up, and there was a lot of talk about Matt Rule, and he's on the McAfee show. And then by the end of the weekend, Nebraska's dealing with a pretty bad loss there to Minnesota. What's kind of been the reaction around those parts to, I wouldn't say flirtation, but just kind of all that talk and whether it was a distraction and then turning right around and having a loss of that nature right afterwards?
Yeah, I got a few texts from Smokey during that one. He was running pretty hot.
I bet,
as you'd expect. I think it's. I think people here want to believe this team's pretty good, and so I think Michigan and Minnesota have just been kind of pretty big letdowns from the standpoint of you're sort of, all right, I'm starting to buy in. I'm starting to feel like Dylan's getting better, that this team is getting better. That you look at the schedule, you feel like they can win 8 or 9 games just based on the schedule. And, that tends to lead to taking looking at some of these games, assuming they're going to be easier than they are. And I think, tight turnaround Friday night game at Minnesota, not to make excuses, Nebraska played poorly in all phases. And I looked this up. They gave up their defense between rushing and receiving. Their defense gave up more than 200 yards after contact in that game. So Minnesota was just running through bad tackle attempts and really able to move the ball on them and control that second half. And pretty humbling one for Nebraska, and one that I think has kind of shut down the Penn State speculation around here a little bit, because now it just sort of feels like, man, you got Northwestern next, and we're going to view this one as a must-win because the team kind of has to get the mojo back here a little bit.
It's a kind of game, Minnesota, because they've owned them, and this is the kind of game that they can lose 20-7. Northwestern's won. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but they've won 3 in a row. They're 5-2, and they've looked pretty good. You mentioned after contact. I would have thought it was another 200 before contact, because they never were in some cases touched.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. And I think that Matt Rule is pretty direct about calling out himself and his coaches and his players for not being ready for that game. And I think that's I don't know how much it is the Penn State stuff is in everybody's ear, because the Penn State stuff's not going to play out for another 6 weeks or whatever. I think part of it is just this team thinking they're better than they are, and you got to keep working, and you got to know that even if you spent money on this roster and your quarterback's older and all that kind of stuff, you're still going to be in a lot of close games, and you got to win on the margins. And Nebraska's not been very good at that over the years.
Max, can I play a little rapid fire on coaches with you?
Let's do it.
Okay. This is guys that you think would or would not leave. Lane Kiffin.
I'm willing to believe that Lane Kiffin stays at Ole Miss. I'm willing to believe the reasoning for that. It would be interesting if LSU opens. I think that would be one he'd have to pause and think about, I would think. Florida's, they're going to put everything he wants in front of him. And just like Auburn a couple of years ago, I guess we'll see kind of where his gut feeling is when it's time for that. But I have no doubt. Like I could see him going to Florida, but I don't think he has to go to Florida.
Jeff Brom, who I've heard his name brought up for 4 different jobs that are open or could be open.
I don't think Jeff Brom is looking for jobs. I think he's pretty happy at his alma mater doing exactly what they've been doing and having a lot of success. I mean, gosh, not just the Miami game, but really you look at his whole tenure. I think it's been pretty impressive the way they've built those teams. That's clearly a coaching staff that knows how to evaluate and recruit the portal and kind of reload every year. I bet he'll get calls, but I don't think he's like looking to leave.
And what was the last one I wanted to say? Oh my gosh. I've blanked on it now, but those are the 2 I was thinking for sure.
Oh God, I thought you were going to ask me Aranda. That would get me in trouble.
Oh, like Aranda's in a different spot. Like, I mean, okay, let's just say Stanford calls Dave Aranda, which is kind of a nice fit for him. Do you think he would go to that one and leave Baylor?
Or just like hypothetically, like, do you think you'd turn down UCLA if you're him?
I don't know. Like UCLA is kind of a mess though, right?
Dude, it's so weird here, Max. Like, I don't have any idea of what anybody thinks about what's going on right now with the Baylor football program. Like, I used the word malaise yesterday, and I know that the people working over there probably don't feel that way, but the fandom is, I mean, not that they're always right about everything, but it's just there, kind of, if that makes sense. So I don't know where Dave Aranda's head is, but I know where the fans are, and I think they'd welcome that at this point.
I was looking at this yesterday. I was writing about this for ESPN. You go look at the ESPN FPI, and I know people like don't love some of that stuff, but like you just look at what FPI is projecting right now. FPI has 8 teams in the Big 12 currently projected to go 8-4 or better. It is a little surprising Baylor's not one of those teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is theirs, like 7-5, 6-6?
Let me see here.
Yeah. I can't imagine it'd be more than 7-5 until some more evidence comes out.
Yeah, it's yeah. What would you guys guess?
I would say 6-6. Correct?
6-6. Yep. They got it projected for 6.3 wins.
Yep.
Yeah, so 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's not going to do it, man. That's not progress.
Yeah, Max, I don't know, like when you're scheduled to ever come to a Baylor game again, and if you do, it's probably because there's some big news. But game day is dead. Just absolutely.
I think Smokey, I texted you a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, you did.
After one of the crowd shots, it's just like, what's going on?
Yep. Been like that really since the Auburn was great. Obviously, Auburn had fans there too. But I mean, that's a great matchup. The opening game, night game on a Friday. Students are still in town if they were deciding to leave. But Arizona State was, and there's some people who wanted to argue with me about that, but it was a shell. Garrett and I were there right before kickoff, and I'm like, wait a minute. I thought there was like 20 minutes left until kickoff. No, it was right before kickoff, and it was a shell on the northern side of the stadium. I don't care about the weather, the sun, the heat, or whatever. That you don't worry about that in Tuscaloosa, College Station, or in Norman. So you shouldn't worry about it in Waco. I don't give a damn how hot it is. So yeah.
Now, Paul, I do want to ask you to extend the game here. Who's your dream hire for Florida State if that opens up?
My dream hire is Kenny Dillingham, but that's not going to happen either. I mean, I would be happy with an Alex Golish.
Urban Meyer's available,
or a John Summerall. Yeah, I don't think that would happen. I don't think the Hellmouths.
Jimbo Fisher, maybe Coach O.
Yeah. It's funny. Jimbo moved back to Tallahassee. He never sold his house. And so I wonder if he's like laying in wait going like, can we try this again? And do all that. But again, we just had Sam on, and Sam was like, look, he had every resource at A&M and failed. Like, how are you going to sell it to FSU, who has far less, than A&M does?
Yeah, Dillingham's kind of like Jeff Brom. We're like, God, that'd be impressive if you can pull it off. But I do believe these guys when they say, hey, this is the place I always wanted to be.
Yeah, I don't know. And like, there's the only alum out there that I can think of that would make people excited is Dion. And I don't think Dion wants to go there because I think he's still mad at them. And B, I just worry about Dion's long-term, career as a coach because he's had all these health problems recently.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
Max, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Are you at a game this week or what?
No, I am not. So hoping to take in as much football as possible.
Hey, I was going to ask you about BYU and Utah, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When they entered the conference, BYU right before Utah during the changes the last 5 years, we had heard of the rivalry. We know about the name of it. But watching that game and even last year, is that even more intense than you thought? And have you ever covered that game?
I haven't. No, I'd love to. I'd love to kind of, because I feel like that would be intense, but intense and different. It was interesting talking to the BYU and Utah players at media days. I felt like, talking to the Utah guys, they were like, we're kind of friends with a lot of guys on the other team. It's like, it's not one of those where like the players are necessarily like motivated to like go brawl with each other or anything like that. But certainly the fan bases, and especially online, those fan bases are as loud as it gets. So, that was a wild game. I'm interested. Like, we'll continue to see as we go along here. Are you guys like pretty much buying like BYU can do this? That BYU can be a 10-11 win team this year? I think that was a great performance against Utah. Obviously, Devin Dampier's banged up, and this BYU team has shown that clutchness to kind of get it done in some tough moments and stuff like that. But would you lock it in today that BYU's in Arlington, or do you think it's going to be two other teams?
The defense is so damn good, but they have this like afternoon game in Ames, coming off such an emotional game at Iowa State. We kind of like have lost track of them, but
at Iowa State, at Tech, TCU at home, at Cincinnati are their next 4 games. With a bye week between Iowa State and Tech. But if they get through those other 2 with just one loss, one loss, I think they're probably there.
I think if they win at Ames and it looks like that they haven't like gotten like lack of focus or whatever, because of who they had to play last week in the game, I think if they go into Ames and win, I believe in them. I'm not so sure, but I'd like to see what they do in Ames, because Iowa State, you would think, I don't know. I would think that's just a tough matchup. 2 fundamentally sound teams.
Yeah, and I think gets Carson Hansen back, I think, this week, which is important. I'll tell you what, and we'll be talking about it a lot here, and you guys will be talking about it a lot here over the next 5-6 weeks. The who you lose to is going to matter a ton, because I feel like we are definitely setting up for another year where 3 or 4 teams are going to be tied at the top of this when we get to the end.
Yep, I could see that. I could absolutely see that. Thank you, man. Max, enjoy your week. All right, Max Olson, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports. Around the corner, we need to do our college football picks. Andrew Valade was on hold yesterday, so he has the graphic ready for that. We'll do that. And we'll also have Craig Smoak and Off the Radar with a lot of different news. This is 365 Sports. Brandon Rowe, enter the picture here, sir. Brandon, of course, part of the mothership. He had a birthday. Is it today?
No, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow's your birthday. And so Brandon sent me a text. I was in Dallas at the time, and he said, "Hey, Smokey, I'm going to Don's. I'm going to get myself a birthday cigar." How did it go, young man?
Cheyenne took care of me. She was great. I asked for the Smoky special, but it was huge, and I was a little intimidated by the size of it.
Yeah, they've got some cigars that are actually longer than the Churchill length. I don't know why they would call it the Smoky special, because that's damn sure not true. But yeah, they have some.
That was my personal. I was like, what does Smokey go for?
Yeah, I like the Churchill length, Macanudo, Ashton. I love Arturo Fuente. Rocky Patel's my favorite, and I actually have found some that are called the Howitzer, but I don't have them. They said they're going to try to see if they can carry those. So what did you get?
I don't remember the exact name. Do you remember what I told you?
No, I don't. Something I don't, but you got one.
Yeah.
When will you smoke it? Tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll probably smoke it tomorrow.
All right.
I'm supposed to be getting a grill from my wife, but I don't know when that's gonna happen.
Yeah, you go out, put some steaks and chicken, whatever on it, and smoke a cigar, have a drink. That'd be great. Well, I'm glad they took care of you. Cheyenne and Joshua at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, 48-foot walk-in humidor. Just a phenomenal place. You walk, there's 2 different doors. It's so long, and they have if you like something that's a little bit, I call it like almost like fire when you smoke it, like a Padron or Cohiba or something very smooth, they have that. They even have some of the cigars on the far wall, not the ones with the military or veteran cigars that are made, but on the far wall that are kind of like they have a little bit of flavor to them. Smaller cigars if you want them, not like the ones Garrett smokes, those smaller cigars in Phoenix. But they have every cigar you can imagine. If they don't, they'll get it for you at Don Chubador and Coffee Beans in the Townwood Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
0% for 72 months on all 2025 Ram 1500 trucks during the Drive into Fall event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Check out a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with a massive $16,000 off, or a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $12,000 off, and both at 3.9 for 72 months. And if you drive a Ford, Toyota, or GM, get an extra $1,500 bonus cash. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Over 30% of adults struggle with chronic foot and joint pain, and many face mobility limitations as they age. But a revolutionary Comfort First slipper has taken the wellness world by storm. Try Cloud Slides and feel you are walking on the clouds. Cloud Slides.
Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. Download the app today and sign up with promo code SPORTS365 to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code SPORTS365. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog. Make picks. Win money. Must be 18 and up. 19 and up in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 and up, and in Colorado for some games, 21 and up in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
I've had a pretty good year when it comes to that office pool stop. By the way, you can get on there online and a chance to win a $100 Visa gift card from North Star Funding Partners. I've done well with that one. I've done well, I think, during the week when we have 5 games to pick. But I don't have any confidence in my picks this week for whatever reason. Last week, I had a hell of a run. All of us did. 5-0, 4-1, and 3-2. So slightly ahead of Craig and Paul. Trying to dig himself out of a ditch.
Yeah, I regret picking Utah, and I probably won't pick LSU again if we have them on.
Well, they're in the mix this week.
I know, yeah, and guess what? Didn't pick them.
All right.
So yeah, but
Craig, you had Utah, both of you guys, and I see why. I mean, they were, we didn't know it's a bang game. I just had a good feeling with BYU at home.
Yeah, I mean, Utah, I'm going to be hesitant to pick them in big situations moving forward. I feel like they haven't really risen to the occasion. I mean, what's a big game they've won in the last couple of years? There's not one. So gave them the benefit of the doubt, thought that they had it together on offense enough to be able to put some points on the board. And that BYU, I mean, they put up a lot of yards, but they couldn't finish drives. Like they could not finish drives. And Devin Dampier goes from moving them down the field to suddenly looking like he can't throw the football in some situations. And BYU, just give them a lot of credit for clamping down in the red zone in particular and coming up with some turnovers. And I think that crowd helped. And I'm going to be very hesitant to bet against BYU in Provo for the foreseeable future. But I learned a lesson there, and that was my one blemish. But I don't think it was some crazy pick either.
No, I don't think you learned. I don't think you had to learn a lesson. That's I
learned a lesson. I'm not picking Utah in any big moments
until
for the foreseeable future, and I'm not picking against BYU against Utah, but I'm not picking against them in a big game at home. I've learned that lesson.
When you said that about yards, I harkened back to something that I used to do a podcast during COVID with Orlando Skandrick. You know him as America's sweetheart because he's just a teddy bear
from Boise State.
That's what everybody says.
But I remember when they called, I was calling you so I can go, hey, they got me this deal with Orlando Skandrick. He's like, he's going to do a podcast with you? I was like, yeah, he is. So anyway, but I remember doing a podcast one time and I said, man, the Cowboys just give up so many yards. And he goes, lose me with the yards. He's like, yards is not a stat anymore. He's like, it's red zone defense and third downs. He's like, those are the stats you need to look at. If you're all about like, oh man, this offense has a ton of yards, this defense gives up a ton of yards. How much do they score? How much do they prevent scoring? What do they do on third downs? That's where you know you have a good defense or not. And BYU is good at both those things of getting teams off the field on third down and in the red zone.
But against Utah, Utah was 5 of 12 on third downs, and BYU was 3 of 12.
Yeah,
both of them were not, 1 of 3, 1 of 5 on fourth.
Yeah. Well, exactly. What'd you just say? 1 of 5 on fourth down.
Yeah.
Like that's a killer.
Yeah, that's 4 possessions that end right there. Yep.
Yeah, with
you're
nothing,
right.
with nothing to show for
and
it.
turnovers 2-0. Utah was down 2-0 in the turnover department. That's deadly too.
Yeah, they didn't finish drives. They were, slightly better third downs, but they were way worse on fourth downs. I mean, BYU was 1 of 3 as well, but 1 of 5. That's 20% rate on fourth downs. And when you've done it a handful of times, you've got 4 drives that turned into nothing. I mean, that's atrocious. And yeah, threw a pick that was costly, but with the big punt fumble, right? I mean, that was the second turnover, right?
It was the one that I thought was the deadly one.
I mean, that was the killer for them, was that fumbled punt. So, I mean, those are the things that turned it to BYU's favor ultimately, amongst Bear Bachmeier playing better than Devin Dampier did, and so on. So anyways, that's our breakdown of BYU Utah here in the pick segment.
All right. So let's get to our picks for this week. Sun Devils in Houston at home, Sun Devil Stadium. I'm taking Arizona State. I think they're about to get on a nice little run. The big win against Texas Tech, their defense, although this could be a low-scoring game, I'm taking Arizona State.
All right. What order are we in?
Paul, you're next.
Okay. I'll take Arizona State as well. They're at home. Sam Levitt's playing. So I don't think there's any reason to think that they should lose the game, other than Houston's played pretty well. But I do think this is the second big boy team they've played, and I think that there's going to be a difference in talent that will show.
Give me Arizona State. I mean, not having Jordan Tyson is something that's notable there. Houston's got a good defense, but I think Arizona State's just a better all-around team at the moment, and being at home doubles it for me that they've got the advantages pretty much that I'm looking for in trying to decide this game. So, Arizona State looking really good coming out of that win last week, but a little banged up. That's something to pay attention to, and I still feel like with Houston, I'm trying to give them credit, and I have been giving them credit, but I still just don't feel like there's some great team just yet to where I see like they're going to roll into Tempe and beat a top 25 team. Like, I'm not there with the Cougars yet, but hell, if they do, then I'll be there next week when we talk about them, and I will give them their flowers. I still think they're clearly very improved and on the upswing. So this is not a knock in that way, but Arizona State's on a different level right now.
Kim and Paxton are picking the Cougars.
Okay.
All right, A&M at LSU. I just feel like A&M is more than just like, sometimes they've been not fraudulent over the years, but
fraudulent's right.
Is it okay? Well, listen. LSU at home is always a dangerous game. I just don't like the way they look. They just look like something's missing. I like A&M, but they do need. Last week they had to score a bunch of points. They've had to do that when the defense wasn't as good. They need to play both both complementary sides of the football to me for them to win against LSU. And I think A&M's defense will probably show up better this week. I'll take the Aggies.
I think the Aggies are a team that can win games in any kind of fashion that the game goes. I think they've shown it throughout the year. And Notre Dame and Arkansas were high-scoring games. Then you had a bunch of lower-scoring games. However this game needs to play out, Mike Elko kind of has created a system for that. And if you last week, it was 45-42. Arkansas scored their last touchdown with like 9 seconds left because Bobby Petrino, I don't think he knew what the score was because he wasn't using his timeouts in the right spots to even try to get, a situation where they score a touchdown, get an onside kick. And so they kind of force people into bad decisions, which is the sign of a really good coaching staff that Mike Elko's put together. So I'm picking the Aggies for that reason because they can kind of yo-yo a team back and forth on the style of how the game's going to go.
Yep, that's what they've done. Greg?
There's got to be some upsets somewhere this weekend, and this seems like it might be a place that's ripe for one given LSU's history, but I'm going to take A&M. I just really am impressed with how well-rounded they are. I say that about BYU a lot, but the Aggies just have so many weapons offensively that are week in and week out. Guys like Mario Craver showing up for them. Marcel Reed's been really solid, and they've obviously got a really good defense as well. So I'm a believer in Mike Elko and this Aggies team. I know everybody's waiting for the shoe to drop, but I just don't think it'll be this week. I think it would be more like go 11-0 and then lose to Texas. That's what I would see, if anything. Or maybe this is just a totally different chapter we're writing in Texas A&M football history. Long way to go, but I'm giving them the win here in Baton Rouge, and this has turned into a nice little rivalry created somewhat out of thin air and out of necessity and geography and all of that. But, I think that the Aggies are the better team based on everything we've seen this year.
All right, so another game. Ole Miss in Oklahoma. OU's favored here. I think that Mateer looked better last week. Obviously, Texas was able to beat him up, and the Longhorns defense just stifled him. I still don't know much about Oklahoma's run game, and Mateer's a runner, but not like a guy that's like Lamar Jackson. I still think Ole Miss will be kind of bouncing back from a tough loss, but they have a lot of weapons. Even though Oklahoma's favored, I am taking the Fighting Lane Kiffins to win this one.
I am also taking Ole Miss
Dear
to win
God,
this
I
game.
have the same pick as you.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad. So Craig could start running away with this thing after this week since we're the same. I really wrestled with this one because I really do like the direction that OU's going in. I just think they might be a year away from truly being there right now. And I'm just going to take Ole Miss because I think it'll be that kind of a game. But Gaylord Family Stadium is a really tough place to play, and we'll see. But I just wonder, with the mobility that Trinidad Chambliss had, the ability that he has to kind of be a dual threat, that might be more than a really good Oklahoma defense can handle. But we'll see.
Yeah, I originally picked Ole Miss, but I flipped to Oklahoma. Give me the Sooners here, and I'm normally a little bit more negative. I think we all are probably towards our teams than outsiders are, so I've leaned kind of negative towards them, maybe more than I needed to at times. Although I haven't been like fire everybody and this sucks or anything like that. Nothing crazy. Just I typically don't give them the benefit of the doubt like I do so many other teams. I picked Texas to beat them a couple weeks ago, and that proved true. But I'm picking them here. I think being at home matters, and I also think it's Oklahoma, guys. I know Ole Miss is really good and that you don't just show up and your name wins games for you, but I almost get the feeling people are talking about Ole Miss as though Oklahoma is somehow inferior to them in some way. And I don't feel that way. Well, I don't feel that way. Nobody should feel that way because it's not that way. But I don't think there's anything to be intimidated by. I don't think there's anything to feel like this isn't a winnable game for Oklahoma. And I think that being at home, again, matters a great deal here. Having the defense that they do matters a great deal. And going and getting that win in South Carolina last week, I think, was huge for them following that Texas loss. So give me the Sooners at home. I don't feel tremendous about it, but I'm rolling with them because I think this is the kind of toss-up game that you're gonna have to win in the SEC to get where you want to go, and I do think this is a pretty good team.
Yeah, the South Carolina game could have been dangerous because they were due. South Carolina has not been able to be as good as people thought, but yeah, that was a nice win on the road. So there we are with that one. We go to the next game. BYU on the road, dangerous game. Iowa State is favored. So I'm going against two home favorites, and I'll take BYU to beat Iowa State in Ames.
I agree with you, Smokey. I think that BYU just has a good vibe going right now. Iowa State is got far too many. I mean, the injury report came out today, and it looked like one team didn't fill out their whole side of the paper because BYU is relatively healthy compared to Iowa State, who has just so many guys. Although they are getting a couple guys back, namely a kicker, which is important since they were down both their kickers at the same time a couple weeks ago. So that is important. It's important in a league that's going to be close. I just like the vibe in Provo right now.
I think there is a really good chance for an upset, but I'm still going to go with BYU. I think that they are super well-rounded. I say that phrase every time with them, but it's just true. It fits. I mean, they're great in special teams. They're very good offensively when Bachmeier's not turning the ball over, and they are excellent on defense. So you take into account kind of the up and down nature of Iowa State's season here as of late, and they might be primed for an upset, especially being at home. But I like way more of what I've seen from BYU overall. They're tough, they're nasty, they're well coached, and I think Iowa State has some of those traits. But I just think BYU's kind of that team right now. So I'm going to ride the hot hand. Now I am sitting there thinking about, like, is there an emotional letdown? But I just don't think there will be with Kalani Sitake's team. I think that they know better, like, if that makes any sense, or that they will find a way to avoid that. But I mean, that did cross my mind because it's always emotional playing Utah, especially in a close game. So yeah, I mean, if Iowa State wants to really turn this whole thing on its head, then there's a good chance we could have Cincy sitting in lone first place, which would be something else.
That'd be great.
After this weekend.
I don't want to see it, but Cincinnati at the top and where they are now is already.
It would just be really interesting
really fun,
sure. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think BYU wins this game.
All right, so there we are with that one. We all agree. And Missouri Vanderbilt. Wait a minute, did I take Missouri? I thought I picked Vandy. That's what I have on my sheet. Andrew, you want to go back and look at it? I think I have Vanderbilt winning that game at First Bank Stadium. They're at home. Missouri, obviously, this is two teams in the top 15, not far from each other. But I think I took Vandy, and I will take Vandy if I'm allowed not to change it, but if that's exactly what I said, Andrew. But I'll take the Vanderbilt. I just Pavia and what they do and what they're doing defensively, too, to me is very impressive. It's not just him.
This is a great coaching matchup. It's a great quarterback matchup. It's a great defensive matchup. I'm taking Vandy at home because they're at home. And I think that that's going to be a huge boost for them. Game day is going to be there this week. And I think Vandy at home. But look, Mizzou is not messing around. They're a good team. They did not play great last week in Jordan-Hare, and guess what happened? They still won the game. Bo Prabula is a really good quarterback. I like Ahmad Hardy a great deal as a running back. I think Vandy is good, not great yet. Winning this one would help put them on the road to that, but Clark Lee has got something going on there. So I am leaning Vandy here, and that's why I picked them, although I'm not going to be completely shocked.
No, it's just lit up. You pick Vanderbilt. Don't back down.
I'm not.
All right.
Yeah, I'll take Vandy as well. Went back and forth on this one. A lot to like about Missouri, and really kind of was tugged that way a little bit earlier on, but talked myself into Vandy, Diego Pavia, and the hot hand coming out of last week in that marquee win of theirs. I'm anticipating they'll add another one, and part of what kind of swayed me their direction was playing at home. Not that every single team that plays at home has some distinct, huge, massive advantage or anything like that. But I do think when you're splitting hairs, kind of like you end up doing in this game a little bit, that's something that can kind of tilt it. And so it tilts it for me. And what otherwise I'd probably be flipping a coin over, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, I'm rolling with the home team here. But Missouri, there's a lot to like about them. And yeah, Ahmad Hardy is a handful. Pribula has been is it Pribula or Pribula? I keep hearing people say it two different ways, and I can never tell which. It's Pribula, right?
Yeah.
Okay. it's like 50-50 on the pronunciation, and that drives me nuts. But I'll go watch a video with him being interviewed to double down and make sure on that. But yeah, he's very good. This is a great little SEC matchup here, and look forward to watching it on Saturday.
I want to see. Hamby has over 800 yards already rushing. It's 11 touchdowns.
Need Hardy?
Ahmad Hardy. Yeah, he is. He's a handful. Missouri's only loss was a 3-point game when it got really close against Alabama. They are, no doubt, for real. But I think we're going to have to change that, Andrew, because the sheet that I have in front of me that I printed out, I think I said Vanderbilt. But that's okay. There we are.
Until Mizzou wins, and he's like, what, Andrew, you're right the whole time.
Right here. There it is. That's the sheet that I sent to Andrew right here, and I have Vandy. But okay, there we are with that. We have Off the Radar around the corner. But before we do that, Brandon, do you have the Matt Campbell audio? So Matt Campbell, Iowa State hosting BYU, one of the games we picked. Here's Matt Campbell talking about what seems to be maybe the most lovable person on earth in BYU's Kalani Sitake.
You hit the word right. They're a really great team. And obviously, I think, I've talked about Kalani before, my respect for him. Man, if my own son could play for anybody in college football, I would want my son to play for him. I mean, that's how much I think of him and how he leads a football program and a team. And you see it. I mean, they play for each other. They play really great complementary football, and they play great team football. And so all the things that when we've been our best and when we're at our best, there's some similarities in terms of how we want to play the game. But so much respect for them. And, across the board, they're playing really good football right now.
Matt Campbell on Kalani Sitake and that game coming up this week.
I think that'd probably be the number one answer if you polled the entire league on if you could have your son or daughter play for one coach, who would it be? I feel like Sitake would probably be the leading vote getter. I don't think he'd be unanimous, but I do think he'd be the leading vote getter. And I'd be curious to see who number two would be, because I don't feel like we've maybe heard as much about that from other coaches. Like, oh, that Dave Aranda is really great. Like, I've never heard that. Or, man, that's Scott Satterfield. I'd love him to coach my kids. I've never heard that, but I've heard it about Sitake now more than once. And so, yeah, that's high praise from a guy who's very serious about his football and family, and Matt Campbell. And we love Kalani Sitake. I mean, he's joined us a few times, and we've always appreciated his willingness to give us time. And he's got a hell of a football team. And, when that UCLA job opened up, that was one of the names I immediately thought of, just West Coast and somewhat close. I mean, it's not like Utah and Los Angeles are exactly next to each other. There's some separation there, but that region, he's got a background, and he could recruit the hell out of California, and would that make sense? And now with all these other jobs opening up, I'm curious, but he's got such a good thing going in Provo and such a strong background there that I'm assuming he'll be in it for the long haul, and that's very exciting to see what can continue to be built there, because as good as it is right now, they're really only getting started as far as being on this next level in their growth as a program. So, yeah, man, they've got the world in front of them right now. They're obviously in control of their own destiny right now, and he's a hell of a football coach. So I would love to know how many of these job openings contact his agent. Like, just where is he in the big picture thought process of ADs out there hiring? I know he doesn't fit everywhere. Nobody does. But, like, where is he on the pecking order? Let's just call the best football coaches. Mm-hmm. Like, how far down the list do you go before you get to Kalani Sitake? I don't think it's very far.
No, I don't think it's very far. I think the thing is that if he ever left there, you would have to think like he would be bowled over by some kind of offer, because look, he went to school there and played for Lavelle Edwards. So he's an alum. He has unbelievable support from the university and the fans and the boosters right now, which is why, like, if UCLA called him, we're like, hey, we're in the Big Ten, we're in Los Angeles. He'd be like, yeah, but I know how you do things. I got Crumble Cookie, man. That's spending money for us. So I'm not leaving. This is like, he has got a good thing going. He's got a true freshman quarterback who transferred in. That's a stud. He's got one of the top quarterbacks in the country that will essentially be there as soon as Bear Bachmeier's getting ready to leave in the barrel, and a veteran at that time and getting ready to go. So
there will be a couple of years of lap over.
Yeah, there'll be a couple of years, but
with Ryder,
yeah,
because he won't be there next year. But Bear Bachmeier's only a freshman, so he's still got 3 more years after this.
So, like, because of what was a ridiculously unfortunate situation with Jake Retzloff, because that happened, and then I don't say lucking into Bear Bachmeier, but because of an incredibly unfortunate situation that happened with Troy Taylor, the coach at Stanford, where they had to fire him in the spring, you wind up with the perfect quarterback progression on your roster that no one else gets to have anymore, really, in college football. So I don't know, like, why you'd leave. Like, that's the other thing. If you've got kind of set up to where these things happen, if you call me up and say, like, hey, we've got a bunch of money for you, I'd be like, yeah, but so does BYU, and I don't have to.
He's in a really good spot.
I don't have to recreate the scenario that through hard work and grit and luck has fallen upon me, and the way they respond to things.
He fits there. Now we've also said coaches are in great, Novell and others, and then next thing you know, it all comes down to if you're successful, but he's a beloved guy, no question, and he represents them so well. Speaking of crumble cookies, Brandon, the note about their alum that continues to come through for them, and it's Jason McGowan. In the post-game locker room, they were talking about going to have to pay a fine for storming the field, and they pointed at Jason. BYU fine update. No fine for BYU storming the field. That's interesting. So here's the play. Instead of a fine, that money going straight to our players through NIL. And because of your overwhelming support, inspired by Kalani's love for his opponents, every bit of student lunch debt in the Provo City and Salt Lake City school districts for all schools have been wiped out. Love you, Cougar Nation.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that is like Garrett hearted that when he saw that one. That's awesome.
School lunch debt is a bigger problem than I think people realize across the country.
Well, I want to start there. I think it's ridiculous that he even has to do this and that it exists to begin with.
Exactly. Craig, I wish you, if you get a chance, go back and watch our interview from the Super Bowl that I did with Andrew Zimmern when he was there. Smokey, unfortunately, was in quite a lot of pain and had to leave before he got to talk to Andrew Zimmern, who's one of the coolest guys in the world, just all the things that he does. But he talked about food insecurity in America and how it is something that we could easily wipe out with 1% of the budget of the national, of all the things we do. And it's a no-brainer because of kids will do better in school if they're not hungry all day. Mm-hmm. They'll do better in life if they're not hungry all day. All these things that are good to nourish kids. And so good on Jason McGowan for doing that in the places that he touches there. And it's awesome. It's ridiculous he has to do it, but that is so awesome that he did that.
I think it's interesting. He's not even a BYU alum, but he's hopping on the bandwagon, and he's obviously there in Utah. So, and I don't mean that in a negative way, hopping on the bandwagon, but he's not a BYU alum if you just assumed that. That's very cool, and that's great support to have from somebody who's not even in your alumni phone directory. Just have these outsiders that are cutting checks for you as well. So that's great. That's great for where he's sending that money, and great to have that type of support. And just things are rolling along well for BYU right now. And I believe the reason why they didn't have a fine is because, as best I understand it, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but they did what they needed to do to tell people to not rush the field. So it wasn't like they didn't say anything and then people rushed the field. It's like they said, on the Jumbotron, do not rush the field. Do not rush the field. So I believe in the eyes of the Big 12, they did their job in trying to prevent it, and they can't help it when people just go storming past them. Mm-hmm. So they at least attempted to. I don't think Arizona State did that. I think Arizona State is just field rush, and there was no trying to prevent the field rush. I think that's the difference based on what I was reading earlier today. So that's how you avoid it, is you try to prevent it, and then, if it goes off anyways, then at least you tried.
What a nice deal. 1,101 crumble cookie locations in the United States as of earlier this month. Waco's got one in the Central Texas marketplace. Craig, near where you live.
And I'll tell you, big fan.
Yeah, no, it's good. All right, when we come back, Craig Smoak Off the Radar. Around the corner, Ari Temkin at the top of the hour. We'll have the poll results. We'll have quizzes. The wheel will be spun. And Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. And speaking of food, Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com. Go online, and there's always something that's a special for that particular day, whether it's pizza or something else. And Bob Mock, the owner locally in Waco, great guy, loves to be a part of all of what's happening locally. 5 locations in Waco. It is Robinson, Hewitt, Woodway, China Spring, and in Belmead. If you like pizza, well, they're the fastest growing pizza brand in America. My favorite is the thin crust, although I've gotten the regular crust the last couple of times I've ordered to have them delivered to my condo, and the all meat. Love it. Absolutely love it. And there's also more. They have chicken wings and salads, and if you want, soft drinks along the way with them. And of course, very simple. Marcos.com, look online, order, go buy and pick it up on the way home, or they'll deliver it to you. Marcos Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
No car payments for 90 days when you bring your auto loan home to Genco. Get 4.79% for 48 months and make no payments until 2026. Plus, get entered to win 3 months of no car payments. Bring your auto loan home to Genco. Lower your interest rate, save money, and no payments until 2026. Special is subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. Visit GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back. Welcome in to 365 Sports. Appreciate everybody's time, whether viewing live or after the fact. And while I have you for a moment, we are pushing towards 70K subscribers. So if you please hit that like button and subscribe button, we'd certainly appreciate that. I don't like to ask often. So when I say it, you know that it's coming from somewhere where I really mean it. And I'm not just throwing that out there. So if you could do that for us, if you haven't already, we would greatly appreciate the support. Now let's get into a few things off of the radar here. And some of it is quite frankly not too far off of the beaten path that we normally walk. But I also don't just use this segment for stuff that's totally out there because it doesn't always apply twice a week, but also just stuff that we don't really have other time to spend on or that we normally might not get to. And I don't know when we would have gotten to this one, but it was as interesting of a story as any I found over the last few days, and that was the announcement by the San Francisco Giants after some negotiations back and forth that they would be hiring Tennessee Volunteers baseball coach Tony Vitello, fresh off of the Vols' first baseball national championship. Vitello, I don't know how much this was being rumored and bandied about over the last few months. I don't know if this just kind of came out of thin air. I don't really monitor the conversations like that that closely in Tennessee circles to have known about anything, and nor the Giants for that matter. So I was one of probably many who just saw over the weekend the reports start to trickle out about the Giants and this interest and the possibility that this is the direction that GM Buster Posey would go. So it is, in fact, after some negotiations and some time, I guess, spent thinking about it on the part of Tony Vitello, where this is all headed. And he is now the manager of the San Francisco Giants. And as you see here, a lot of interesting stats and a lot of things that the Giants are already, putting up to promote him and what all he accomplished. And certainly there's a lot that he has accomplished over his time in the college ranks, which also included Arkansas and TCU as well. But he's a college baseball only guy, which is the big thing that people are kind of freaking out and wondering about and curious to see how it works out. But 6 regional appearances, the national championship last year, 5 super regionals. I mean, we can go on and on. 42 total draft picks. Those are just some of the accolades for him. But after 8 seasons in Knoxville, he is headed to the pros, and this is a very interesting experiment. So did you guys find this as interesting as I did?
I think
and what do you think of what's going to occur next?
My mind was blown, and Buster Posey is, as the general manager, someone who's not afraid to like think outside of, all right, let's hire this guy who's been a manager 6 times, or this guy who's a bullpen catcher who's really liked. And that works out a lot of the time. But, to go into college baseball and pull the best guy or the hottest guy right now, and look, he's been the best the last couple of years, is really interesting. And especially given the fact that he's not coaching the minor leagues at all, which is usually the path that you would go through, or have been like a player who went right from playing to essentially being a bench coach or a hitting coach or something like that, like Don Mattingly, who's with the Blue Jays now, but as their hitting coach. But this is an outside the box thing, and I've already seen. Look, Link Jarrett just got a raise at FSU. I assume there's going to be like 3 or 4 other coaches that would be up for this job that are going to get raises, because Tennessee's already showed a willingness to spend big money on their baseball coach. $3.3 million for Tony Vitello to be the coach at Tennessee. Now, he's not going to be able to live as high on the hog in San Francisco.
Yeah, I keep seeing that, though, but I'm seeing different reports on whether that's really what he's making.
Yeah, so we'll see on that. I'm just saying it's still cheaper to live in Knoxville. I mean, but I don't think that's the point. The point is
clearly not
very comfortable and with a chance to coach a team to a World Series with some good pieces in place right now. The problem is that, they're in the division with the Dodgers, which, still going to have all the best players.
Max Scherzer gave him the stamp of approval, who is one of his pupils, so to speak. I like the guy. I like fiery.
Of course you do.
I know you would. My personality. I mean, that's just who I am, and so I like him. And he could be boring as hell. I might like him, but I've always liked. He's got an edge, man. Now, how that works at Major League Baseball level, well, there's some guys that have had an edge in the past, but I like him. I hate it for Tennessee. They're losing him. But this is going to be intriguing. I like the Giants franchise anyway.
I think it gets blurry when you talk about having an edge and then just being an asshole. And I think he's probably crossed over back and forth a few times.
What does that mean?
It means exactly what I said. It means exactly
Garrett,
what I said.
Help me out here.
And I think he's been on both sides of that fence, as probably a lot of people who enjoy him have been, that love his antics. But he's bristly. There's nobody that celebrated this more than non-Tennessee fans who care about college baseball, especially SEC baseball fans. Garrett, an LSU fan, waving his head up and down. So, I certainly saw a big celebration from that crowd of folks. But certainly a guy who rubbed people the wrong way and the right way if you were a Tennessee fan for the most part, and clearly a national championship. If you're going to ride off into the sunset, that's the way to do it. But, this is a huge – interesting risk by the Giants front office and by Buster Posey to go with a guy with no Major League Baseball experience whatsoever So yeah, I'm curious to see how this works out, man. But it's a big swing and a big splash, and we'll see if that means a lot of splashes there in McCovey Cove coming up with his baseball teams.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that he's gone from college baseball, just for the simple fact that the last time my team was in the College World Series, they were dispatched by him in that. But I like the move. I'm not a fan of him personally, but I'm not going to not acknowledge how damn good a coach he is.
I love him.
Yeah,
and as you guys know, I just do. I do. There's a story. I forgot who wrote it, but there's a story I read about him yesterday that shows you a different side. Doesn't mean he still hasn't crossed the line, but I really enjoy his background too.
Yeah, I don't really care one way or the other about whether he's what he's like on TV or whether he's a little cuddly kitten behind the scenes. I just think the story itself is really interesting and intriguing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this works out in San Francisco, and if it creates some sort of not a pipeline, but of a change in Major League Baseball philosophy where they start going, maybe we should hire more college coaches. Like, that's what I'm curious about, because they never hire college coaches for
Here's the story
jobs.
from The Athletic. The first Major League manager to leap from a college head coaching position, Dick Hauser did with Florida State, but had a huge background before that in the major leagues.
He was only at FSU for a year, too.
Yeah.
As the coach.
Yep. So it does not happen very often. So there you go with that. Meanwhile, don't worry about that other graphic, Brandon, but VJ Edgecombe, former Baylor star, making his NBA debut as the season gets underway. And I'm not going to be probably talking much NBA on this show. It's just not something that I'm much of a fan of these days, just for no particular reason other than it's just not what I guess one part reason is the whole Luka thing, but that's not entirely why. I just don't pay as close attention to it as I once did when I was younger and a much bigger fan of the NBA. But I still follow along, and I'll still watch some of the bigger matchups throughout this year. And I certainly could not help but see the performance last night by VJ Edgecombe: 34 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists in his NBA debut. The 34 points, most ever in an NBA debut. They started whittling down his numbers into like the most first quarter points since LeBron James, like that kind of like narrowing microscopic view of what he was doing. But even when you zoomed out and the big picture of it, it was not just a big first quarter and surpassing LeBron's marks. It was a big game surpassing everybody's marks as far as rookies go for the most part. So absolutely explosive night for the young man, who we got to see a little bit of last year, not too far away from these studios, and could not be happier for him. He was in like a graphic with AI from the Sixers Twitter account because he had the greatest Sixers rookie debut, and then he was in these LeBron graphics because it was the most, like, it was this whole thing last night about VJ Edgecombe, and so very cool. 14 points broke the LeBron record for most points scored in the first quarter of an NBA debut. LeBron debuting back in 2003. 34 points, most in a Sixers rookie debut, surpassing Iverson's record of 30 and 96. 34 third most ever by a rookie in an NBA debut, behind Frank Selby's 35 points
That's
in
back a long time ago.
54, and Wilt Chamberlain's 43 in 1959 with the Philadelphia Warriors. Those were the only 2 performances by rookies that had more points in a debut. So they won 117-116, so they needed every single one of those points. But it was on his teammate Tyrese Maxey had like 40 plus. He had a massive night, so it was a great debut for VJ Edgecombe and the Sixers.
He's like Keontae George, who played at Baylor, better because the NBA spacing is more available. You're not clogged up as you can be in college. Great young man. Got a chance to visit with him a couple of times in post game, just as quiet as he can be, but on the court, he is a demon.
Oh, he is absolutely making people make business decisions about, like, I'm not getting in this dude's way. He's going to the rack, and it was dunks, it was threes, it was everything. Our friend Mike Gill, my long lost twin, that is in Atlantic City. I was on his show the day after the draft, and he is he was asking me about like, well, his points per game for a guy is like looked a little lower than that. I said, look, it's the way that college games works. He had a couple injuries. Baylor's season was choppy last year because of the massive amount of injuries they had. I said, but when he gets into the league and there's so much more spacing, because you have to deal, like the reason there's more spacing is you have to deal with all NBA players as opposed to like one guy on each team, and everybody's so fast and so good. Yeah, he's just proven to be a monster already.
All right, so the site that I usually would use for college football TV ratings is like, I don't know if they're shutting down or if just like they fired their staff or I don't know, but Sports Media Watch does not update their college football TV ratings in time for me to have them available to you each week any longer, which is unfortunate because it was just very convenient to go there and have that available. Now, some other sites have picked up the slack, but it just doesn't look as good to simply take their picture. So I got these eventually from, I think it was On3, but just real briefly, and I do mean briefly, the highest rated game last week was Ole Miss at Georgia, 979, the tally for Rebels at Bulldogs, 9.79 million. The 43-35 victory by Kirby Smart and company. Most watched game of the week. That was followed by Tennessee at Alabama, had just over 8 million viewers for that Crimson Tide victory on ABC in that primetime slot. And the third most watched game, LSU at Vanderbilt, just under 6 million viewers for that noon kickoff or noon East kickoff as the Commodores got the big victory against the Tigers. So if you're paying attention in your head, that is 1, 2, 3, the full podium going to the SEC on ABC.
And big numbers.
And massive numbers. Yep. I mean, 8 million, 594 million, and the biggest number, that 979 million. So, yeah, ABC, ESPN, SEC, that whole partnership working very, very well. They take the entire podium. And the biggest non-ABC SEC game last week, USC at Notre Dame, 4.6 million, the NBC night game. Then you had some other Big Ten games after that were a part of the mix. And you got to go kind of like towards the bottom of the top 10 to eventually get to, I believe that's right, or close to it, to finally get to the first Big 12 game, which was Texas Tech at Arizona State, 3 o'clock kickoff on Fox, 2.56 million for Texas Tech at Arizona State. And I think that might have been 10th out of 10. But again, it's kind of hard to see on On3's website. It's jumping around with everything. So hopefully Sports Media Watch gets their ducks back in a row. But big numbers for ABC and SEC and ESPN. No surprise there. And final note for you here is later on tonight over on Amazon Prime, got some NFL action as the Chargers and the Vikings will tangle. Uniforms. And the Chargers bringing back these new uniforms, modernized version of their old Navy uniforms. Many people in the comments saying these should be the base uniforms. These should be the ones we wear all the time. I actually like the baby blue, though. I think that looks pretty cool. But it's amazing how just uniforms being sleeker and more aesthetic make old uniforms that kind of got old or tired or not even looking that good now look really cool again.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that. I mean, I didn't hate these uniforms back in the day, but they look better now that they've been taken away and brought back and updated a little bit.
The Jets were the same way when they brought back their like. I like either Jets logo that they have, the old one and the new one and the current. Like I've liked that. I've always liked the Chargers and kind of all their different duds. Really, I was not nuts about the bananas and pajamas.
No.
Look last week, but that's the color rush. So but yeah, I like their baby blues too.
Yeah, baby blues for them look better than on some other NFL teams that have tried those before.
Yep, so there you go. That'll be later on tonight on Amazon Prime. Chargers and Vikings, and the Chargers will be wearing those navy blue duds. So for you uniform fans like myself, get to see those in full display. But there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
It almost, for whatever reason, looks even more metallic. We got a break for Ari Temkin. No, we're going to go straight to him. Okay, Ari Temkin, who was up at Big 12 Media Days covering basketball with Tuesday and Wednesday, joins us on 365 Sports. We want to get to a couple of the football nuggets too, but Ari, your overall take with you have KU with Bill Self coming back from a health scare. Tech is loaded. BYU is loaded. It just seems like this is going to be a fun year yet again.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest piece is that Kansas, and then obviously within the last decade, Baylor really dominated the Big 12. And, these are two programs that have won titles in the last decade in this Big 12, and they're 5th and 6th in the preseason poll. And, certainly Baylor has a total roster turnover. I actually do like their team, but Kansas should be really good with Darren Peterson and Flory Bidunga. But yeah, at the top of the conference, clearly Houston with what they bring back, and then BYU with Debansa being brought to the table with Richie Saunders and what they already have. Arizona is going to be very good. Texas Tech. I mean, you referenced it there. I think Grant McCasland may be the best coach of the Big 12 right now. So yeah, it's going to be as good as the league's been. Last year I think the league took a backseat to the SEC. 2 years ago, the Big 12 was absolutely the best league, and I think this is the year that it returns to being the best league in college basketball.
Yeah, Ari, I agree. When I put in my ballot, I think the top 7 or 8, I'll say 7, like maybe the top 2 are interchangeable. Then like the middle, like the next 5 are pretty interchangeable. And you kind of go on down the list because it's that way. Now, I do think there's a bit of a drop off after Kansas State and TCU in what we know, but that doesn't mean it won't be good. It's just with Digital James, not with Cincinnati now and all that. I think there's a lot of questions with a lot of teams like UCF and all that of what do you really have on your roster? What have we seen?
So let me ask you this, Paul, who's like the drop off? Who do you think is going to be the finish at the bottom of the Big 12?
I had Arizona State last.
Yeah.
Just because it just didn't seem to end well last year, and Robbie Hurley is on, shaking around.
No, I agree with that. I think, Arizona State, UCF. I think Cincinnati is a tournament team this year. They have, arguably one of the most underrated players in the Big 12 last year, and Mustafa TM at UCF, who's now transferred to Cincinnati. This guy that can block shots. He can guard 1 through 5 with his size at 7 feet. He can step out and shoot. And they added him to Day Thomas. And I think like there's 2 guys in the Big 12, I think, that are really under the gun this year, which would be Jerome Tang and Wes Miller at Cincinnati. And I think both are going to be good. I mean, PJ Haggerty, King McClure, who was on with us, could not stop raving about Haggerty and how underrated he was heading into the season, considering he was a 21-point scorer. But I mean, K-State has 2 guys that were 20-point scorers last year. So I think those are 2 programs to me, Paul, that are kind of on the edge of that. Will it be 7 or 8 teams? Will it be 9 or 10 teams that get into the dance? So, we'll see. And look, I mean, the interesting thing about this whole thing is so much of these conversations that we'll have deep into the season really get decided by November and December. And that is, how does the Big 12 fare in non-conference play? Because depending on how those games go, then you end up having those become quad 1 wins. And if you remember last year, and the same thing it was the Big 12 2 years ago, it was the same thing in the SEC last year, where every win down the stretch of the season for SEC teams was a quad 1 or quad 2 win, which means the wins help you and the losses don't hurt you. And so, like, again, that all goes back to what you do in the non-conference in November and December. That goes a long way in that quad 1, quad 2 stuff that really helps to measure who makes the tournament.
One other basketball question, and we get some football. I had this question in the chat, so I was from SJL Plus. Has Jacques Vaughn even had any impact yet on the KU basketball program now that he's joined that staff? Anything with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's funny because Self actually talked with us specifically about this. And, I think it's a good question, but like, it's only been a few months, I mean, the season hasn't started yet. One of the things though, that Self mentioned in terms of help would be, in recruiting, KU has done well in next year's class, obviously with this year's class too. They added Cole Rosario late, who's a guy that reclassified. And I mean, he looks like he could be an absolute steal, sort of like Johnny Furphy was for Kansas a couple of years ago. And, Jacques Vaughn was helpful in getting Rosario and helping to develop him to the point where, he was supposed to be heading into his senior year of high school. Instead, he's going to be playing college basketball. And then you've got, Darren Peterson, obviously who came before Jacques Vaughn was there. And then, the 2026 class is really shaping up to be very good for Kansas. So I think they bring in Jacques for that, for his ability to have in the same way that Kevin Young, the BYU basketball coach, is able to have Kevin Durant and Chris Paul and current NBA players call up AJ DeBance and some of these other recruits, that was the hope that Jacques Vaughn was able to do, and get guys that he coached or knows that he influenced in the NBA that would call recruits in the future. So I think that is happening. That will be continuing to happen, and we'll see, obviously, as the season progresses. The reality is Kansas has replaced some longtime assistants. Norm Roberts was on the bench for Bill Self for a long time, multiple stints too. He left, Self's bench and went and coached at St. John's. Then he came back and was on KU's bench, and then left and came back again. So yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic, I think, with new coaches and Self is in a really important year here to kind of redefine, what the last couple of years have meant to KU hoops. He had the health scare a couple of years ago. He looks to be in great health, and he seems to be taking care of himself, eating healthier, maybe not drinking as much or at all, which is huge and helpful, I would imagine. As somebody that doesn't abstain from drinking, I would imagine it is helpful to not drink, especially for your health. But I mean, they really disappointed the last couple of years. And so much of that was running this really stale, old style of offense. And we talked with Self about that too. Like, is that like schematic or is that based on personnel? And I get the sense it's based on personnel. I think as I'm a KU fan and getting ready to actually so funny enough, guys, I flew out to Kansas City for media days, flew back last night, and then I'm driving with the family tomorrow to go up for the Kansas State game this weekend. So 2 round trips up to Kansas City and to Lawrence, planes, trains, and automobiles. But yeah, I mean, that's, when I look at Kansas basketball, I think, what they were able to do schematically, that's maybe different than what they had been doing, where, and Self mentioned they were somewhat limited with Hunter Dickinson. Obviously, I think it's clear that Dickinson was not the best addition. And what Kansas has really done has put way more money and commitment into high school recruiting as opposed to the transfer portal, which I think is what Bill Self initially was doing.
So I'm sure that one of these other two, and if not, I'll ask you before we go. We'll ask you about the Sunflower Showdown. We got to get your thoughts on that. But rather than, for time's sake, breaking down all of what happened last week in the Big 12, Texas Tech falls. Oh, my God. Huge win for ASU. Huge Holy War win for BYU in a great game. Cincinnati stays unbeaten. Where's your head coming out of last weekend? Kind of where are you now with those results?
Yeah, I mean, I think after the Utah game, we thought that Will Hammond maybe should be replacing Baron Morton. And, he's not looked great. I mean, even against Kansas, he could not throw the ball consistently against Kansas's defense. And then, I think struggled again against Arizona State's defense in that game. So credit to Arizona State having the right game plan for bouncing back on the defensive side, Craig. I mean, I kind of had like the top tier still being Texas Tech, BYU, and then Arizona State. So I think like those are my top 3 right now in the Big 12 in terms of tier 1, because Arizona State has lost, but it's without Sam Levitt, and it is the still the defending Big 12 champs. And then BYU undefeated. We'll see what they do against Iowa State this week, and coming off their big win over Utah, and then Texas Tech. I think again, the health of Baron Morton looms large now because he's not going to play this week. It's Oklahoma State. You probably should beat Oklahoma State, even without Baron Morton. So how healthy can they get him? And the bigger key is how healthy can he stay? Because again, I mean, Hammond against Utah's defense, I can't figure it out. I don't know how he played so well, but he struggled mightily against Kansas's defense. And I mean, they were able to win that game and blow them out in the second half due to what they did on the ground with Hammond with his legs, but then also with Dickey. And then last week, it just, when Arizona State kind of choked out the run, it wasn't as, as easy for them. But that game was absolutely wild and coming down the stretch. The BYU, I mean, I don't have to tell you about the Baylor TCU game, also crazy coming down the stretch. Arizona State, Texas Tech too. It was wild.
What are your thoughts on Baylor and where they kind of sit right now? Because it's weird around here, Ari. It just feels stuck.
Yeah, I mean, you have a defensive mastermind head coach who, as long as he's been at Baylor, has not had good defenses. Well, the one time he did, you could argue, and people do, obviously, that he had Matt Rule's players. So, I think the most disappointing part of what's happened at Baylor this year is the defense. I mean, you had clear defensive struggles last year. You went into the portal into the offseason and tried to improve that. And I would think with Dave Aranda being the defensive mastermind that he is, you would have maybe looked at some film and figured out some ways to improve your defense. I mean, I guess you could say they're not just giving up big plays this year, they're giving up all of the plays. Big, small, whatever, medium. But I mean, that's it, right? I mean, it's just that simple. This offense is basically having to do everything. And then the running game is so inconsistent. There's weeks where the running game shows up, and then there's weeks where it doesn't. And I think that puts so much on Sawyer. And like, that's why his numbers are really good, but he also has a lot of turnover worthy plays. Like, you look at deeper at some of the analytics, and it's because it's all on him. There's the margin for error is zero. Like, you have to go out there and do it all because your defense can't get stops. They can't keep the other team off the scoreboard. And there's games where you're not able to run the football effectively. So yeah, I can imagine it's extremely disappointing in Waco. And I mean, I picked Baylor to win the Big 12. I figured, based on having Aranda, that they would have figured out their defensive issues and fixed them, and their defense is worse.
Yeah, it is. And when you're a defensive coach and you're the head coach, you know, Bo Pelini eventually got fired at Nebraska, and people thought it was his temper and all that. Okay, clutch your pearls. But their defense was giving up 70 to Wisconsin about once a year to somebody. That's eventually, and they would love to do that and win 9 games now. But that you can't be a defensive coach or an offensive coach, and that side of the ball is struggling. How about, real quick, Cincinnati? And then, speaking of Baylor, they host Baylor with that pounded football team that they have playing really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, look at what Cincinnati's offense, passing offense in particular, did to both Kansas and Iowa State. And that could be a pretty good preview of what we're going to see. You know, Cincinnati does not just have an elite passing offense; they have a very physical running game too. And that was, to me, in those 2 weeks where their offense looked to be one of the best in college football, when they beat Kansas and Iowa State back-to-back weeks. I mean, they were physical running the football, both Sorsby, you know, and Tyree Walker on the ground. And then they get you the home run hitter with Pryor, but even Pryor was making people miss. And then they did the same thing against Iowa State. So, I mean, and you know, Iowa State's defense is in free fall mode right now. We'll see how they play hosting BYU this week. But I mean, they're a couple of games here against Salter in Colorado, and Cincinnati and Brendan Sorsby have not fared well without their 2 all Big 12 corners. So, you know, Cincinnati has so far feasted on bad defenses, and I expect they'll do the same thing here against Baylor. You know, it will look probably a lot like the TCU game. You know, if Baylor's going to be in it, they're going to have onside kicks and fumbles, scoop and score touchdowns in the final 3 possessions. I mean, Baylor's going to have to go toe-to-toe with an offense that's going to be met with zero resistance. And Cincinnati has a good defense. I mean, Dante Corleone, obviously, in the middle, but it's not just him anymore. I mean, they have a physical defense. Matthew McDoom had a 100-yard interception for touchdown, and I'm just so happy to say his name because he's got arguably the best name in the Big 12, Matthew McDoom. So, yeah, I mean, Cincinnati is legit. They're, to me, you know, in that probably that second or third tier, along with Houston. We'll see how Houston does, where it's kind of like, you know, what they're doing so far. Are they competing towards the top of the conference, or, you know, are they just happy to be bowl eligible for the first time since joining the Big 12? And that's what we're going to find out these next few weeks with both these teams. But I think, you know, Cincinnati's offense should really be able to exploit Baylor's defense, you know, unless, again, we keep kind of hoping with Baylor to see something that we haven't yet seen, right? Like, at some point we're thinking maybe the defense turns it around. But you know, if something happens in 1 week, or 2 weeks in football, it's an anomaly. If something happens over 3 weeks, a quarter of the season, 4 weeks, a quarter of the season, that's a trend. Well, we're in week 9 now. We've got a trend here at Baylor's defense. So if we're thinking there's going to be improvements, you know, we're hoping for something we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, you got to have an identity by now, or you don't have one, or you do, and you don't want to know what it looks like to look in the mirror. Ari, thank you, man. Enjoy your trip back to watch that game. Great. It's really an intriguing 16 straight for K-State against KU. I know people don't want to hear that at KU, but ought to be one heck of a game. Thanks for your time today, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I hope all the Kansas players have seen it, and I hope it's everywhere because, yeah, this is the year it's got to end. Kansas is in the best position for it to end this year. So it better end this year in front of their new stadium. Can't wait to see it. I'll have to give you guys the full report on the new digs when I'm on next week. So can't wait. I'm also going to go see Kansas, who just beat 10th ranked TCU in volleyball last night. I'm going to go see them play Kansas State at Allen Fieldhouse tomorrow night. So I'm excited for that one as well.
Full meal deal for Ari and KU. Thanks for your time, Ari.
Take care, guys.
Big 12 Radio on TuneIn with us a little bit later in the week than normal because of the Big 12 Media Days coverage. When we come back, Paul Catalina, the top 5, will spin the wheel, and also quizzes and the poll results. This is 365 Sports.
Dog deserves a second chance. In a loving home, they'll brew a second cup, and let's change the world for every pup. One cup at a time. Visit us at groundsandhoundscoffee.com.
For the past 4 years, we have trusted Jackery to keep us powered while on the road. The Explorer 5000 Plus provides 5,040 watt hours of portable power to pair it with the smart transfer switch to power your entire house off the Explorer 5000 Plus.
When you view the glass half full, the little things become magical. 10% of profits go to help kids heal. So choose optimism and make the magic real. Visit lifeisgood.com.
For those who want the best, look no further than the Founders Series by Louisiana Grills. If you want the best food, then you need the best grill. Louisiana Grills.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Flag and Anthem. Please go to flagandanthem.com. Use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. These are the top 5 things college football czar Paul Catalina, that's me, would do. These are the first things I would do in my administration. That is never going to happen, by the way. They're never going to call me and say, Paul, fix this. Sadly, they will not. And here's the deal. I come pretty cheap. I would do it for less than most would ask for. Number 5, enhanced cross-conference scheduling. Right now, there are some teams that have a cross-conference rival. For example, Georgia and Georgia Tech, or Clemson and South Carolina. That's fine. If you don't have one of those, you can jump into our let's find you a cool game portal, because you're all going to have different 9 games. Also, I would also offer incentives. I don't know what, but for teams to maybe have their 11th game against another Power 4 team, or let the group of 6 come in and rotate through some of those as well. That way, your fans get to see different games, but they also get protected rivalries. And say you're the border war, something that wasn't played regularly between Kansas and Mizzou. We're going to codify that as your regular cross-conference rival. And then we're going to create some other things. But that way, when you look at a schedule as a fan, you're like, oh, cool. Texas plays Oregon this year. I mean, that Texas and Oregon would do that, so that's probably not the best example. But if you're a fan of Vanderbilt, you could be like, oh, awesome. We get to play USC. If you're an A&M fan and you get to play Penn State or something like that, that's going to only make you excited. And it doesn't rely on these different, like, well, we're going to do home and home, and you're going to do 2-1 and all that. No. We'll just create a formula like the NFL has of moving things around while protecting cross-conference rivalries. Number 4. 5 for 5. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Arby's 5 for 5. I know Garrett is. Arby's used to have 5 roast beef sandwiches or 5 beef and cheddars for $5. It was magical, and I thought it gave me an opportunity to talk about the good old days in this segment. Red shirts need to be over with. Sadly, like the 5 for 5. But no, red shirts need to be over with. 5 for 5 eligibility. It was announced by the NCAA yesterday that would not be coming in 26-27, which is kind of understandable considering there's a great deal of eligibility lawsuits going on right now. But once they figure all that out, I would go to 5 for 5 immediately, because it makes the most sense. It is absolutely imperative for us to get rid of 6th, 7th, 8th years, and 6 years should only happen in medical redshirt. But there should not be 7th and 8th year players in college athletics. It's absolutely insane. It's not helping anything, and it's not making your team better. I'm telling you right now, there are some instances where it helps your team. In most instances, if you have a 6 or 7 year guy, it's not helping you right now. It's not helping you anymore. COVID was a long time ago. We need to get back to some normalcy here. Number 3, stop asking Congress for help. I don't know what side of the political aisle you fall on, but if you are naive enough to think that these dunderheaded nitwits in Washington are coming to help NCAA athletics, you belong in the same room with those dunderheaded nitwits. They are not coming to help. They're not coming to help anytime soon. This is not something that they really care about, other than saying that they care about it. It is a lot of hot air. The SCORE Act is illegal based on numerous court cases that have already been decided. It's the NCAA and the powers that be trying to turn back time. The SAFE Act doesn't really address most of the issues that need to be addressed. It really kind of just focuses on athlete compensation, which is fine. Neither of them will work. There needs to be some kind of compromise. That's how government's supposed to work, on compromise. It's been that way since the very beginning of our republic, but we've forgotten that along the way somehow. And so stop asking them for help. Make your own rules that you've learned. The courts of the United States and the laws of the United States that exist for you to write your own rules. Stop living in the past. Live in the now and and work for the future. Write the rules based on the court decisions that have happened and the laws of this land that protect the rights of citizens, and do that. Stop trying to be robber barons and turn back time. Write rules that you know will not get challenged in court, or you feel way more confident will not get challenged in court, and pay your lawyers to do that instead of losing in court every time you walk in the damn door. Number 2, move for football and basketball only conferences. Look, we're not going to put the genie back in the bottle realignment wise, but one of the things that's hurt us, and I, as the college football czar, would say I would like football, basketball only conferences, and I would like the other sports to go back into regional things. We're not getting football and basketball back that way. As much as Cody Campbell wants it, I don't think it's ever going to happen. These schools would not have made that decision if that were the case. So since we can't turn back the time all the way on that, let's make the sports that don't make as much money better suited to make money or not lose as much money. The College World Series in Oklahoma City was the logo I picked for softball. You cannot have softball teams going coast to coast all week long during the year. I almost think basketball could benefit from this as well. I just know that's too much of a moneymaker to stop the back and forth. But when you have a team on the West Coast that has to go to the East Coast and back to the Midwest and then back home in a week, that's not productive for college athletes to do. Professional athletes do it, and that's fine. They get paid way, 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 way more in most cases than college athletes. But let's not pretend like that's good or that's cost effective, because if you're going to compare it to the NBA or something like that, well, the NBA is billions of dollars a league. That's a different thing than colleges who make varying amounts of money on their athletic programs moving all around the country. And number 1, playoffs are 12 or 16, pick one and go. I'm not an AQ guy. I'm not a multiple AQ guy. Your conference champion gets in. The rest of it is left up to whatever system that we build to decide that. Strength of schedule and all those things are accounted for. But it's 12, it's 16, it doesn't go above 16, and we leave it alone and go and stop fighting about it. Make a deal that makes everybody happy and move on. Also, a deal that makes everybody happy should reward the teams that are actually in the playoffs and the conferences that are actually in it. They shouldn't get rewarded more even if they have less teams in it. That's kind of insane. Say the SEC or Big Ten has a down year and only gets 2 teams in, and the ACC or Big 12 does actually get 4 teams in. It could happen in the future. You don't know. Things are changing. Well, why should the Big 12 or ACC get less money still in their college football playoff share than the SEC and Big Ten because they negotiated this out before a lot of the rules changed. So make the college football playoff equitable as much as you can and move on. Well, that's what I would do. Now, is this all a pipe dream? Of course it is, because I'm a reasonable person, which is why I don't work in college athletics. That's going to do it for us. The carnival starts right now. We're spinning a wheel.
We're going to spin the wheel. Paul, you do that.
Okay. Okay. Which food would you outlaw forever and Olive Garden doesn't count?
I got it easy. Sauerkraut.
It's an acquired taste. And if you can't acquire it, then I understand. But I do like it, but it was an acquired taste. Craig?
So I guess it's like my least favorite food or something, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I don't like, so it all kind of blends together. But trying to think if there's something like I absolutely just hate. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this a little bit.
Okay, I'll tell you, I would like cauliflower to go away.
Cauliflower?
Yes.
I was thinking Brussels sprouts. I don't enjoy the bitterness of Brussels sprouts.
Unless I like them if they're grilled.
Yeah, I don't like them really at all. So I guess that would be mine. I don't care enough to like ban them. I'm not like that hate-filled in my heart. Like some people, I don't like it, ban it. But I don't like it.
I would like you, I would negotiate down to, look, you can have cauliflower however you want, but keep it away from pizza and wings and stuff.
It's okay if you have it when it's like on a table at a party and it's cold, it's raw. But anything else, you don't like chili, do you?
I like chili just fine. I just don't like it all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's stuff that people think I don't like, and it's like, no, I've just had it 5 times in the last 3 weeks. I don't want it again.
Well, I didn't think you liked it at all. Well,
no, I like chili.
But sauerkraut is disgusting.
Yeah.
No, God. All right. Now, what habit did Michigan quarterback Denard Robinson have that earned him his nickname?
Well, shoestring is his nickname.
Yeah.
So
I think it's the played with untied shoes.
Yep.
I would imagine. Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. All
Read
right.
it, Craig.
Robinson began playing football. Shoelace is his nickname. Okay, well, slightly off on that. Playing football at age 10 with untied shoes, earning him the nickname Shoelace. Tacklers often went for his laces, but he just run in socks. Coaches and parents tried to tie them, but he kept it up through high school. At Michigan, coaches accepted after seeing his speed and skill, went on to set NCAA and Michigan records in career rushing yards, total offense, and touchdowns. So
54% got that right. That's a high percentage for usually some of these questions. Okay. And the next one. This decade saw college football move its goalpost from the goal line, which always was interesting when you had to run a crossing pattern, to back of the end zone.
I think it's the 50s.
I think it's later. I think it's the later decade because there's highlights of still guys running into the goalpost at the goal line.
Yeah.
Maybe even into the 50s.
Yeah, I think it was kind of deep into the 50s, and I think it was kind of right around that time. I'm going to say the 50s.
I knew a coach that back in the day that said they used the goalpost as like a safety when the ball inside the opponent got inside the 20. What do we have here, Andrew? 20.
Huh? See, I didn't answer. Man, y'all suck. Y'all are totally wrong on that. Garbage.
I got to look this one up. The
College
NFL
football,
briefly followed. Okay. College football briefly followed, but returned them back to the goal line in 1933. I was thinking about the NFL. That's why I'm wrong. Craig, my fault. In 1974, they moved them back, leading to fewer field goals. Well, not anymore, and more touchdowns.
That's just Brandon Aubrey exists.
Even the college kickers, I think, are getting a little bit better.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw a 62-yarder.
They're starting to hit some deeper kicks with more regularity. I don't think it's enough to be like across the board. Like we're still going to have our shank the 27-yarder with, a chance to win the game out of like for no reason at all other than you're 20 and you have nerves that cause you to miss it. But while that won't ever go away, I do think that there are better kickers across at the NFL is like that's so clear as day when you watch on Sundays. But even in college, I was noticing that last week. I was like, there's guys lining up for like 40-yarders.
And that's no big deal. Yeah.
I've been complaining about it for years. Or not under complaining. I just don't understand how we can. You have this sport in America for so long, and this one part of it is the hardest thing. It's harder than a quarterback to find. It's a kicker who's good. But it's not like it's a new part of the game. It's an old part of the game that we can't seem to get right. It's very bizarre.
Such a mental thing.
Yeah.
Brandon Aubrey is a freak. There's no question.
Yeah.
By the way, somebody said gizzards.
Gizzards?
That's from Barry. I used to back when I didn't care what I was eating. I'd go by those convenience stores and get those fried gizzards, deep fried. I loved them. Not a lot of people like them.
I've never heard anybody talk about fried gizzards that weren't from a gas station, like in the middle of nowhere. But seriously, like nobody's like gone to a restaurant, they ordered fried gizzards. Maybe somewhere in the South they did.
There's some like fried chicken, like fast places that'll have them.
Yeah.
I just always hear about when you hear about the best ones, it's always from the gas station somewhere though.
Lance Owens, hominy and grits. Yuck.
My dad used to get the gizzards too, and livers and gizzards, which was
yeah, liver would be on my list as well. I don't do that.
If we got in trouble as brothers, and my sister Cherie, my mom would cook onions, gizzards and onions, and boiled Brussels sprouts, Craig.
Oh God.
To just
You mean liver and onions?
What did I say? Gizzards
and
yeah,
onions?
liver and onions. And it was disgusting, but it still didn't keep us from being bad kids. All right. Thank you very much. Do you agree with NCAA athletes and staff betting on pro sports? I said no.
Yeah, I think it's I think that they're doing it because they don't know how to police it. I think that's why they're doing it, which is not a great reason to do something, but that's why I think so. I kind of think that, sometimes if you do a certain thing, you can't do certain other things, right? Like if you're an air traffic controller, you can't drink beer at lunch. Like, if you're an athlete, you can't bet on sports. You just can't,
Yeah, I think that I'm with the folks in red there. I think it opens up too much potential for guys to screw up the integrity of the game. And I get that they can't really probably win this fight legally, so they kind of just have to give in and give what they can and hope that a foot isn't taken from that inch, even though I'm sure the lawyers are already lining up to figure out how, like, this isn't enough. They need to get more somehow. But, I don't like it. I don't like how rampant it is. I know we have gambling sponsors, but I don't like how it's like literally ingrained in every single facet of everything now. Yeah. And I just think that sucks. I don't think that's good for anybody. And I'm not anti-gambling. I'm just anti it becoming the main focus of everything because that's never why I cared about sports to begin with. So, I think it risks conflicts. I think it's inevitable. We'll hear about some school, whether it's the size of a Texas Tech or it's the size of like Campbell or something like there. And we already have, but like, I do want to make clear on this NBA story, this is not all just they were gambling. It was like illegal poker games. So like, it's not just about, and they're not even the same story. Like there's part of the story that's about gambling on games and guys giving insider information. There's another story that is about like illegal poker games and things like that going on. That's where Chauncey Billups is involved among others. And so to be clear, it's not just, guys are gambling on games. That's part of it, but not the whole story that you're seeing all over the place today. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much for the 74%. Which college football bubble team is most likely to stumble? Now, be careful here because it says this month, we're in October. There's only 1 week left. Vanderbilt's playing Missouri. Notre Dame is, I don't know who they're playing.
No, Notre Dame's schedule has opened up.
Yeah, Virginia's playing North Carolina. Texas Tech is playing Oklahoma State. So really, Vanderbilt's the only one that has what you would consider as a dangerous game the last weekend of this month in October.
If Virginia loses to North Carolina, God help us all. Like they're so much better than that.
Yep.
So much better.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still another weekend before the month's over with, but Vanderbilt's the one that I have the least faith in, like continuing to win games just because of the schedule being as tough as it is. As far as the team I'm like the least of a believer in, it's Virginia. They've won some really close games. They just seem to be kind of that team this year with Chandler Morris. But I think they'll take some lumps, but their schedule's not the most difficult. Like that's the thing. Like UNC, Cal, Wake, Duke and Vatek, like they can win all those games.
Yeah.
I mean, they can win all those games. So yeah, they're the ones I'm like if this was a 4-team tournament, they'd be the first team out for me. But I give them credit; they've had a great year.
I think technically, yeah, you're right. The 31st is Friday of next week, so it would be a weekend that would include into October. All right. Garrett Ross, thank you, sir. And thank you, Brandon. Happy birthday tomorrow, young man. And then Andrew Valade, thank you for your time today, too.
And happy birthday to Brandon tomorrow. Happy birthday to John Valade today.
Oh.
Andrew's dad and one of our partners here. We love John.
We do. And he had an eagle and 3 birdies apparently yesterday playing golf. He can hit the ball a mile. And thanks to Nurse Catalina from QC Kinetics on my treatment earlier today. I think it made me nervous. Her name was Catalina. But thanks to her from that today. And have a great rest of your day. This is 365 Sports.